Ainz Gown, an ordinary boy who found himself trapped inside a video game with SS rank powers. Luckily for Ainz though, but highly unfortunate for everyone else, his player is already maxed out and decided to use his cheating skills to save the world. Yeah, who am I kidding? He's a complete menace throughout the entire nations. From bringing back the dead, to casting level 10 tier magic with a blink of an eye, and you can't forget the squad of minions that are more powerful than 99% of the entire world forces. If you ever thought to yourself, maybe that's going a bit too far, don't worry, Ainz will take it a step farther. As a massively loser online role-playing game takes place, also known as the MMORPG, called Yggdrasil, which was released in 2126. It quickly gained popularity in Japan, but after 12 years, the game is nearing its end due to low player activity. A group of heroes faces an army of skeleton monsters and manages to defeat them. However, their victory is short-lived when they encounter a group of opponents led by a powerful skeleton lord who easily defeats them with a single blow. Now Momonga, the skeleton lord, who is at level 100 and resides in the Great Tomb of Nazarick. He sits at a round table, having a conversation with another loser player, Hiro, who has been away for 2 years. Hiro expresses his admiration for Momonga's leadership in maintaining the guild and the tomb. However, he is too tired and decides to log out, as the other players are unavailable due to their busy real lives. Even though I guess you couldn't relate to that. As it is the last day of the server, Momonga decides to spend it alone. Hoping to meet the others somewhere else in the future, he takes a moment to reminisce about the memories he made with all the players. He picks up the guild weapon, the staff of Ainz Ooal Gown, which was crafted by some of the players during their paid vacations. Sadly, out of the 41 members, everyone except this loser Momonga quit the game, choosing to focus on the real world. While exploring, Momonga comes across the NPCs, including Sebas and the combat maids of Pleiades. He commands them to follow him to the throne room, where he instructs them to stand by. Momonga takes a seat on the throne, accompanied by the strongest NPC of the tomb by his side. He accesses the settings of the NPC, which were created by Tabula, and his weird ass adds a feature to her that portrays her as deeply in love with himself, using his administrative powers. He then commands all the NPCs to bow down, reminiscent of the past times he had fun with his loser friends. However, Momonga realizes that something is wrong when the server does not shut down as expected. He is unable to access his console or use chat or GM calls. My teammates, I mean an NPC standing beside him, asks what's wrong and starts calling his name, which surprises Momonga as NPCs should not be able to talk. He tries to use all the in-game functions and realizes that they still work, but he cannot contact any admins or access his console. My teammates in games, I mean the NPCs, respond to his orders, leaving Momonga in surprise. To assess the situation, Momonga orders Sebas to leave the tomb and confirm the surroundings. He also instructs the Pleiades to guard the 9th floor. Momonga becomes more confused as the NPCs follow his orders without specific commands. He even orders the strongest girl beside him to come closer, and he can feel her presence, smell her, check her pulse, and yes, even his weird self had to touch her. These experiences make him realize that this is part of real life. He then orders the NPCs to gather in the lightning arena on the 6th floor. Momonga teleports there using his ring and searches for the twin Dark Elves Guardians, which were set up by his friend Chagama. Oro arrives and calls Mare, who is hesitant to jump but eventually joins Momonga. They inquire about the legendary item in Momonga's hands, and he introduces it as a god artifact with power that surpasses god level. Momonga decides to test his magic and finds that he can summon a primal fire elemental simply by speaking its name, without needing to click any icons from the console. You think his magic can summon my dad? He instructs the twins to fight the elemental, with Aura using multiple attacks and Mare providing magical shields. Momonga attempts to contact the guild members but fails to do so. However, he manages to connect with Sebas, who informs him of a slight problem. Momonga orders all the guardians to gather, and the twins successfully defeat the elemental. The guardians start introducing themselves to Momonga, starting with Shell Tier Bloodfallen, Cocytus, Oro and Mare, Demiurge, and the leader of all the guardians, Albedo. They express their complete loyalty towards Momonga, the guild leader, by bowing their heads. Momonga, being a complete loser with no friends in the real world like yourself and nothing else to hold on to except work and sleep, decides to embrace the situation and accept their loyalty. Later on, Mare and Ora engage in an argument about Momonga, but their dispute is interrupted by Cocytus. It becomes evident that all of them are acting in a way that reflects the personalities given to them by Momonga's friends. After the shutdown of the RPG Yggdrasil, the game undergoes changes, allowing magic to be used and altering various rules. My teammates, I mean the NPCs, start moving and speaking on their own. Albedo and the others pledge to work hard and live up to the expectations of their master, and I'm pretty sure if some of my viewers were in this game, they would be down bad. Lawmanga informs everyone that the Great Tomb has been caught up in an unknown situation and he has sent Sebas on a survey. Sebas returns and reports that there are no buildings or creatures within a 1-kilometer radius, leading Lawmanga to realize that the tomb has been transported to an unknown place. He orders the creation of a stronger information system and fortification of defenses. Mare suggests covering the walls with dirt and vegetation to conceal the Great Tomb, which Lawmanga approves. Lastly, Lawmanga asks everyone what kind of person he is to them. Each expresses their gratitude, describing him as merciful, wise, loving, and caring. Albedo, in particular, expresses her love for him. Why is this man's living my dream? Lawmanga leaves the room, and the others discuss his kindness, finding him amazing and an absolute ruler. Meanwhile, Sheltier experiences a crisis of excitement, causing her underwear to be affected. However, Albedo and Sheltier began in a heated argument over Lawmanga and was about to end the series right there and then, to be honest. The others discuss the future of Nazarick, considering the possibility of Lawmanga having an heir. Cocytus contemplates being an uncle, and eventually, Sheltier and Albedo agrees that Albedo will be the head wife first. Albedo then begins explaining her useless plans to the others. Lawmanga attempts to swing a sword but begins to realize that it only fails due to his magic class stats. And now 3 days have passed since he arrived in this new world, and he realizes that he feels emotionally unstable at times. However, he doesn't experience hunger or the need to sleep. He acquires a powerful suit of swordsman armor, which allows him to easily attack with his sword. He also discovers that whatever items he creates by magic are pretty usable. He decides to go for a walk alone on the first floor to breathe some fresh air. Suddenly, he encounters demons named Jealousy, Avarice, and Wraith. Demiurge arrives, and the demons bow down, recognizing Lawmanga as the only one who can teleport through the floors. Lawmanga informs them that he is going to take a walk for a while. Demiurge suggests that he should at least take one of them with him, and not to pull an Alucard on his walk. If you know, you know. During his walk, Lawmanga is captivated by the clear sky adorned with numerous stars. He wears a bracelet of wings and flies towards the moon. Demiurge reverts to his original form. Lawmanga enjoys the breathtaking view of the moon and the glittering stars, which resemble a box of jewels. He shares his intention of finding a box of treasures to adorn Nazarick and his friends from Ainz. Demiurge assures him that all forces will be mobilized to retrieve it. Lawmanga expresses his desire to conquer the world, shocking Demiurge. He decides to spread the name of Ainz Ooal Gown. Suddenly, he notices dirt approaching the walls of Nazarick as Mare uses his skills to conceal them. Lawmanga decides to go and appreciate Mare's work, rewarding him with the ring of Ainz Gown, granting him freedom to move within the limits of Nazarick. Mare expresses his determination to work even harder for Lawmanga and asks about his attire. Albedo arrives and begins extolling Lawmanga's greatness. However, being the menace she is, Albedo becomes a bit jealous upon seeing the ring in Mare's hands. Lawmanga gifts her with a ring as well, and instructs Demiurge to prepare one for him on another day. He leaves, and Albedo shouts with excitement. Later, a group of soldiers led by the head warrior Gazef head towards a village on horseback. The village has been attacked by a group known as the Baharuth Knights, and the king has ordered them to investigate and eliminate the attackers. 50 soldiers have been dispatched for this mission, but one soldier identifies it as a trap and suggests returning to Irantal to avoid losing the most powerful swordsman. The head warrior, however, holds hope for powerful nobles or adventurers to come and save them, despite no one appearing previously. Gazef expresses his dumb motivation to protect the weak. But let's all be honest, if we see Ainz, we're dipping like my father. Meanwhile, in the tomb of Nazarick, Lawmanga watches the surroundings using a magic mirror and tries to figure out how to use it with the help of Sebas. They search for areas where they might find people. While observing, Lawmanga witnesses a group of warriors brutally eliminating innocent people in a village. He calmly watches the scenes unfold, but feels no inclination to save the people. However, memories of his past friend Touchsan, who saved him from online players, resurface. Touchsan had intervened to help someone in trouble. After reconsidering the situation, Lawmanga decides to go to the village to save it and test his own strength. He orders Sebas to raise the security level of Nazarick and send skilled soldiers to assist. He also instructs Sebas to inform Albedo to join him fully armed. As a soldier is about to eliminate a mother and her daughter, a gate suddenly opens in front of them, and Lawmanga arrives. He eliminates one of the soldiers using Heart Grasp magic, a powerful 9th tier spell, and another with Dragon Lightning, a 5th tier magic. Lawmanga creates a soldier as a Death Knight using magic and orders it to eliminate the attacking knights. He then runs towards them, and Albedo arrives fully armored. Lawmanga offers a healing potion to the injured mother, who initially resists, mistaking it for blood. Albedo attempts to eliminate them, but Momonga stops her and orders her to lower her weapon. The mother eventually takes the healing potion, quickly healing herself. Momonga introduces himself as a magic caster and creates a protective wall around them. He gives them a pair of horns, which can be blown to summon an army of goblins if they are attacked. The mother and daughter express their gratitude for saving them, and Momonga reveals his name as Ainz Ooal Gown. Meanwhile, the soldiers have taken control of the villagers and are attempting to eliminate them. However, the Death Knight arrives and starts slaughtering the soldiers with powerful blows. It also eliminates Chief Blues. The soldiers try various strategies to defeat the Death Knight but fail. Momonga appears with a mask on his face, ordering the Death Knight to stop. He introduces himself and instructs all the soldiers to run and inform their leader about him, warning them to dismantle their kingdom. The grateful villagers bow their heads in thanks. Later, Momonga gathers information about this world from the village chief and his wife. They provide details about the surrounding kingdoms, including the Re-Esti's kingdom, the Baharuth Empire, and the slain theocracy. Momonga learns that the attacking soldiers were from the Baharuth Empire, aiming to create enmity between the Re-Esti's kingdom and their empire. The nearest city to the village is Reincarnated, where adventurers usually hunt goblins and monsters for rewards. Momonga decides to go to the city to gather more information. While the villagers mourn the loss of their loved ones who died in the attack, Momonga contemplates using the Wand of Resurrection to revive them all. However, he refrains from doing so to avoid unnecessary trouble. He is satisfied with saving the village. As he walks, Momonga considers spreading the news of the village's rescue under the name of Ainz Ooal Gown. He wonders if there are any other Yggdrasil players in this world and where they might be. As they prepare to leave, Albedo displays rudeness towards a human. But Momonga stops her and advises treating humans with both calamity and kindness. Momonga encounters another problem as the chief discusses a group of knights approaching the village once again. Momonga orders all the villagers to stay at home and positions himself with Albedo and the chief to face the knights. Suddenly, a soldier brings news of unknown figures approaching the village. The king of the slain kingdom orders their head priest to eliminate Gaze of Stranoff, the strongest warrior of the Re-Esti's kingdom. The head priest is given a treasured item containing the miracle of gods and mobilizes their units for the attack. Momonga and Gazef discuss the situation and realize that the monsters from Yggdrasil have also appeared. Gazef offers his services to Momonga, but Momonga refuses, thanking Gazef for his gratitude and assuring him that he will protect the villagers. Gazef heads towards the enemies, leaving the village and planning to create an opening for the villagers to escape. He attacks with his army of soldiers, eliminating many angels, but they continue to respawn. Gazef uses his focus battle aura and eliminates more angels, but they persist due to the magic casters. The magic casters focus their attention on Gazef, and the army returns to engage in the fight again. They fight with multiple attacks, but Gazef spots the head priest and targets him. Despite his efforts, the head priest keeps spawning more angels, leaving Gazef feeling frustrated. The people of the village are scared, witnessing Gazef fighting against the overwhelming magic casters. Gazef falls after a direct attack, but he stands back up with patriotism and motivation to protect his kingdom. The head priest believes Gazef's determination is foolish and assures him that his death will be painless. Gazef smiles with a sense of irony, revealing that someone stronger than him is in the village, calling the head priest a fool. The head priest prepares to eliminate Gazef, but Momonga intervenes. Suddenly, Gazef disappears and Momonga takes his place. The villagers and chief are shocked, and Gazef, holding the item given by Momonga, becomes unconscious with a smile. Meanwhile, Momonga introduces himself as Ainz Ooal Gown to the people of the slain kingdom. He declares his opposition to the entire army of magic casters. Momonga demonstrates a bit of his power by easily eliminating two angels that attack him directly with their swords, leaving everyone in shock. Ainz warns the people to offer their lives without resistance and threatens them with a painful death if they refuse. The magic casters launch low-level magic attacks against Ainz, but he remains unfazed. One magic caster makes a direct hit, but Albedo swiftly beheads him. The head priest then attempts to use Principality Observation, but Ainz stops the angel's attack with his bare hands and destroys it with Hell Flame, a powerful spell. The head priest uses a Yggdrasil item, a crystal that seals magic other than top-tier spells. Ainz orders Albedo to protect him as the head priest spawns a big angel, their strongest trump card. However, Ainz dismisses it as child's play and the battle continues. The head priest commands the angel to use Holy Smite, a 7th tier magic attack against Ainz, but Ainz remains unharmed. Ainz counters by making the angel disappear using his black hole magic, demonstrating his power surpassing even demons. A glass breaks in the sky, indicating someone had been watching the battle using information magic. Ainz activates his defense barrier, knowing they haven't seen the full extent of his power. The head priest starts begging for his life, offering rewards to Ainz, but Albedo dismisses them as lower life forms. Ainz, being fed up with the BS, removes his mask like a menace and takes their lives. On their way back, Albedo is impressed by Ainz's composure and asks him about saving the humans. Ainz explains that they must move forward, considering the enemy stronger than themselves. He used the humans as pawns to understand the strength of their enemies. Albedo expresses her love towards Ainz. Later, in the tomb of Nazarick, Ainz apologizes to everyone for acting on his own and announces that his name is now Ainz Ooal Gown. He instructs everyone to call him Ainz. Albedo and others pledge their loyalty to their leader, ensuring that everyone in this world will know his greatness and calling him the ruler of death, the Overlord. Ainz aims to spread his name in the hope of reaching any friends who may come to this world. Later, Albedo provides Ainz with updates regarding the reports on their surroundings while they search for any Yggdrasil players. Aura expands the area of surveillance to include the Great Woodlands near Nazarick. It is revealed that the man they captured earlier was Nigun, the commander of the Special Ops Unit for the Sunlit Scripture of the Slain Theocracy. Ainz identifies the Slain Theocracy as a nation that believes humans must unite against all other races. He commands Albedo not to contact them for now, in order to avoid creating a negative image in Karn Village. Ainz appreciates Albedo's work, and Albedo expresses her love towards him. Ainz clarifies that the feelings Albedo has for him are a result of his influence, and Albedo is content with that. Ainz reveals that he made a mistake with Tabula's settings, the friend who created Albedo. Albedo replies that her father will forgive Ainz for marrying her, once again showing her love. Suddenly, Sheltier arrives and Albedo and Sheltier engage in an argument. Ainz intervenes and tells them to stop, and Sheltier leaves, mentioning her unavailability for a short time. Later, in the Fortress City E-Rental, Ainz and Nabe arrive at a hotel bar and ask for a room for two. The cost is 7 pieces for one night. As they head towards the room, a man obstructs their path, but Ainz easily surpasses him and accidentally throws him towards a girl holding a healing potion, causing it to break. The girl becomes angry and upset since she had saved up to buy the potion. Nabe tries to eliminate her, but Ainz compensates the girl with a red healing potion, which satisfies her. Nabe and Ainz discuss staying in a low-profile place. Ainz explains that they need to be undercover as young adventurers to gain knowledge about the world and gather information. He instructs Nabe to refer to him as Mammon in the city to keep their identities hidden. They also face the issue of running out of money, so they decide to find a job first to earn money while using the gold they brought from Yggdrasil, without revealing their origins. Meanwhile, the girl with the red potion goes to sell it to a pharmacist in E-Rental. An old lady judges the potion and confirms its authenticity, stating that no one has been able to make it until now. The potion is equivalent to a second-tier healing spell and is valued at 8 gold pieces. Upon hearing this, the girl becomes extremely happy and changes her mind about selling it due to its rarity. Ainz looks at the job postings on the notice board, and people continue to talk about his armor. He selects a job but is informed by a servant that it is only for mithril plate adventurers, while Ainz is a copper plate adventurer. Ainz tries to meet the requirements by introducing Nabe as a third-tier magic caster and himself as a warrior on par with her, but the servant declines their request. Ainz then requests the hardest quest available for a copper-ranked adventurer. Suddenly, a group of guys approaches them and asks Ainz and Nabe to join their clan called the Swords of Darkness. The clan members introduce themselves as Peter Mock, Luckrit Volve, Dine Wood Wonder, and Ninya the Spellcaster. Ninya is a talent holder, a child born with an affinity for magic, which impresses Ainz. They mention another famous talent holder in the city named Balarshi, the grandson of a famous pharmacist, whose talent allows him to use all magic items. Ainz finds this information dangerous. The clan explains their job to eliminate monsters near the city of E-Rental, with a reward from the guild. The whole clan sees it as their daily routine and a win-win situation. Ainz agrees to join them and reveals his illusionary face. One of the clan members expresses her love for Nabe, but receives a rude reply and is stopped by their leader. As they are about to leave, a servant suddenly approaches with a job request from Balar. Nabe moves forward to protect Ainz, but he stops her and decides to consider the request after they finish the job with the clan. Balar introduces himself and shares his plan to go to Karn Village to gather herbs, asking Ainz to guard him. Ainz finds it troublesome but inquires why Balar specifically requested him, as he had just arrived in town. Balar explains that he heard about Ainz defeating higher-ranked adventurers at the hotel, and he wanted to try someone new and hire a cheaper copper plate ranked adventurer. They decide to go immediately. In another scene, a girl dressed unusually, a past member of the Black Scripture, enters a basement resembling a cave. She meets Khajiit and buys him a crown of wisdom, which is proof of a shaman princess. It is an item that emits high-level magic. She asks Khajiit for help in accessing the item to capture a talent holder in the city who can use any magic item. In exchange, she offers to help Khajiit with his ritual, and he agrees. As Ainz, Nabe, and the others continue their journey towards Karn village while protecting Balar, they take a break near a lake to drink water and refresh the horses. Peter warns Ainz that things will get dangerous ahead, and Ainz realizes that he cannot use a lot of magic while inside his armor, so he plans to fight as a warrior. Nabe will use 5th tier magic if necessary, and if that's not enough, Ainz will take the situation more seriously. The area they are in is known as the Wise King of the Forest, and Balar explains that it is inhabited by a mighty creature, a silver, 4-legged being with a snake-like tail, who is wise and capable of using magic, which intrigues Ainz. Meanwhile, in the tomb of Nazarick, Demiurge visits Ainz's room and finds Albedo enjoying herself with a body pillow she made for Ainz. It turns out that she has been knitting pillows and socks for their future child as well. While Ainz finds the clan's magic interesting, he also notices that their technology is of a medieval level, and the sophistication of their magic astonishes him. Luckrat starts teasing Nabe again, calling Ainz and Nabe lovers, which excites Nabe and leads her to talk about Albedo. Ainz interrupts her and tells Luckrat not to interfere in their personal lives. Peter apologizes on Luckrat's behalf, and suddenly they hear sounds of monsters approaching. Peter points out the direction from where they are coming, and Ainz orders Balar to stay in the cart while the others prepare to fight. Ainz decides to take on all the monsters himself, instructing the others to take care of Balar. Everyone joins the battle, with Ainz using his twin big swords to deliver powerful blows, leaving everyone in shock. The others fight goblins and other monsters, and when the bigger monsters try to escape, Ainz orders Nabe to stop them, which she does with a lightning attack. The monsters are easily defeated, and one of the clan members starts collecting some of their parts to submit to the guild for rewards. The clan is impressed with Ainz and Nabe's skills, considering them to be as skilled as royal head warriors. Ainz, being the nice soul he is, appreciates their teamwork. During dinner that night, Ainz contemplates how to escape the situation since he cannot eat or sleep due to his skeletal body. He shares a pre-made religious theory with everyone, stating that they shouldn't eat for a few days after eliminating someone to escape suspicion. He then asks about the origin of the name Swords of Darkness for their team. Peter explains that it comes from the 13 heroes, and the Swords of Darkness are 4 of those heroes. Their ultimate goal as a clan is to find those swords. Each member shows a symbol of a small sword to represent their allegiance. Ainz reflects on his past, when he was weak and alone until a white holy knight saved him and led him to his comrades. He considers them to be wonderful allies and friends and cannot forget the days he spent with them. Ninja assures Ainz that he will find those allies again somewhere, but Ainz responds with disappointment, believing that day will never come. He leaves the conversation with Nabe, and Ninja feels a bit saddened by his response. Dane suggests that Ninja should paint over what he said, knowing the pain of losing loved ones as well. They shift the conversation towards discussing Ainz's strengths and his battle against the monsters. The conversation then turns to Balar, who reveals his interest in a woman from Karn village. On the other side, Clementine, the girl from the Black Scripture, continues to eliminate people in her search for a pharmacist with a rare talent. She tortures information sellers, and Khajiit uses his undead magic to revive the soldiers they eliminated. Khajiit has been preparing for years to turn the city of Erental into a city of death using a spiral of death, which would transform the entire city into a pit of undead. He plans to become immortal through this process and warns Clementine that if she causes more trouble, he will eliminate her. Clementine attempts a non-serious sword attack, but Khajiit easily defends against it. Mamon's team arrived at Karn village and encountered Enri Emad along with her group of goblins. The goblins initially tried to attack them, but Enri intervened and informed them that Mamon's team were her friends. Enri explained to Enfira the reason behind the village's strong defenses and mentioned her encounter with Ainz, who had given her a magical red liquid that healed her. She also mentioned Albedo, which led Enfira to deduce that Mamon was actually Ainz. The scene shifted to Ainz, who stood with Narbrol, observing how the people of the village had grown stronger with the help of the goblins. Enfira approached Ainz and asked if he was Momonga, expressing his gratitude for the red potion Ainz had given them. He requested Ainz to teach him how to make it so he could help others. Ainz agreed to teach him the magic but needed some time to consider, as the magic could also be used for evil purposes. Enfira apologized to Ainz for tricking him, and Ainz advised him not to reveal his true identity to anyone. Narbrol arrived after Enfira left and overheard the conversation. She asked for forgiveness, feeling responsible for revealing Ainz's true identity, and even considered taking her own life as a result. However, Ainz stopped her and assured her that there was no need for such drastic measures. The scene shifted to the forest where the wise king resided, and the group prepared to go there. Ainz decided to take only Narbril with him because of her strong magic abilities. They ventured into the forest to gather herbs, and Ainz planned to tame the wise king of the forest with the assistance of Aura. However, Ainz felt disappointed when they discovered that the wise king was actually a massive hamster. Surprisingly, Ainz managed to tame the hamster easily without much effort. After successfully taming the giant hamster, Ainz expressed his desire to join Mamon's adventurer team. However, Mamon politely declined the offer. Instead, Mamon proposed that he would take on the responsibility of protecting the village. Once their tasks in the village were complete, Mamon and the group returned to Irantal. Ainz and the Swords of Darkness began unpacking the herbs at Barriera's house, while Mamon and Nabe went to the Adventurers Guild to register Hamsuk. Meanwhile, inside Barriera's house, a surprising encounter awaited Ainz as Clementine appeared before him with the intention to kidnap him. In a shocking turn of events, Clementine abruptly appears before Ainz, preparing to abduct him. The members of the Swords of Darkness realize the imminent danger and try to create a distraction, allowing Ainz and Ninya an opportunity to escape. Unfortunately, their escape route is blocked by Kajiat, resulting in a tragic outcome where all the members of the Swords of Darkness lose their lives. After successfully registering Hamsuk at the Adventurers Guild, Mamon's group encounters Lizzie, who offers to guide them to her house. However, upon arrival, they are met with a horrifying sight. The Swords of Darkness have been transformed into zombies. Acting swiftly, Mamon and the others eliminate the zombified members. With the immediate threat neutralized, Mamon begins to investigate the true motives behind this incident, focusing on Ainz as a potential target. Mamon suggests to Lizzie that she should hire his services to rescue her grandson. Recognizing the urgency and sincerity in his request, Lizzie agrees to employ Mamon's assistance. In order to locate Ainz's whereabouts, Mamon instructs Nabe to use a locator scroll, a powerful magical item that can track a specific person. While investigating the situation, Mamon discovers a formidable undead army gathered at the cemetery. Realizing the immense danger it poses, Mamon understands the need to warn the townspeople and the Adventurers Guild about the impending threat. He urgently tasks Lizzie with informing the residents and guild members, emphasizing the importance of preparing for the approaching undead peril. The undead army launches a relentless assault on the gates of Irantal. The city guards valiantly attempt to defend the entrance, but they soon find themselves overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of the advancing undead. The defenders struggle to hold their ground as the enemy's forces continue to overpower them. Mamon's group arrives and fights their way through the undead horde. Along the way, they encounter the members of Zuranorn, who are in the midst of performing a dangerous ritual known as the Death Spiral within the city. Mamon decides to leave Nabe to confront Kajiat while he and Clementine move to a different location to continue their confrontation. Mamon reassures Clementine that he doesn't need to fight her with full seriousness, and their duel commences. Kajiat insults Nabe, calling her a fool, and summons a skeletal dragon that is resistant to magic. Nabe unsheathes her sword and effortlessly defeats the dragon with a single strike, leaving Kajiat completely shocked. He recreates the dragon and uses multiple spells on it. He then attempts to attack Nabe directly with a spell, but she had already cast a shield spell, frustrating him. In response, Kajiat channels negative energy to empower the dragon even further. The dragon becomes stronger and launches an attack on Nabe. Kajiat is astounded when Nabe stops the dragon's assault with her bare hands, revealing her incredible physical strength. Nabe informs him that she was created by supreme beings who surpass even gods. The scene shifts to the battle between Mamon and Clementine, which intensifies. Clementine's speed poses a challenge for Mamon, but he gradually learns to anticipate her fighting style. However, due to time constraints, Mamon realizes he can no longer hold back. He shouts, "Narbril Gamma, show them the power of Nazarick." The scene shifts back to Nabe, who hears her master's command to unleash the power of Nazarick and transforms from Nabe to Narbril Gamma. Kajiat is shocked as Nabe utilizes flying magic and dons a beautiful armor. The skeletal dragon, which can resist magic of level 6 or lower, is unable to nullify her attacks. Using a 7th tier spell called Twin Maximize Magic, Chain Dragon Lightning, she effortlessly defeats both dragons and Kajiat. Meanwhile, Clementine launches a strong and direct strike at Mamon, imbued with elemental power, and manages to stab him in both eyes. However, Mamon swiftly grabs her tightly with one arm, revealing his true identity as an Overlord. He taunts Clementine for being defeated by a magic caster who didn't even use his magic against her, tormenting her further. Mammon decides to give her a nice happy hug between his wonderful arms, but it somehow ends her life in a slow and such a non-painful way. Ainz proceeds to rescue Enfira and destroys the Crown of Wisdom. Mammon returns triumphantly with Nabe, Hamsuk, and Enfira, having successfully resolved the cemetery incident in Reincarnated. At the inn, Ainz feels a sense of disappointment regarding his recent promotion alongside Nabe. He had hoped they would be promoted to the Orichalcum rank. However, he finds solace in the knowledge that as long as his heroic name spreads far and wide, he can find satisfaction. Ainz contacts Albedo, who urgently informs him of Sheltir Bloodfallen's betrayal against Nazarick. In the town of Reincarnated, a young woman staying at an inn causes a scene when she expresses dissatisfaction with her meal. Little does anyone know that the young lady is actually Solution Epsilon, and she and Sebastian are posing as members of a noble family from the Baharuth Empire. However, their hired helper, Zack, betrays them and leads them into an ambush by a group of mercenaries waiting outside the city. While traveling in a carriage towards Riestais, Solution Epsilon, Sebastian, and Sheltir Bloodfallen, accompanied by her two vampire brides, engage in a brief conversation about their creators and Ainz. Their discussion is abruptly interrupted by a commotion outside. The death-spreading brigade has surrounded them and becomes both excited and terrified upon recognizing Sheltir. However, their excitement quickly turns to horror as Sheltir and her vampire companions ruthlessly slaughter the bandits. Solution manages to capture Zack, absorbing him into her form. Afterwards, Sheltir and her minions bid farewell to the group and set off to pursue the remaining bandits and uncover their hideout. At the bandits' hideout, Sheltir encounters Brain Unglaus, who challenges her to a fight. Despite Brain's impressive skills and efforts, he struggles to land even a single blow on Sheltir. Sheltir's comments on his martial arts prowess deeply wound Brain's ego, causing him to flee. Realizing that the time for games is over, Sheltir reveals her true vampire form and resumes her merciless massacre of the bandits. Sensing the presence of individuals outside the base, she investigates and discovers a group of adventurers. Sheltir mercilessly eliminates all of them, except for Brita, who manages to save herself from certain death by using a potion provided by Mammon. Sheltir employs her mind control abilities on Brita to extract information about the source of the potion. However, upon hearing Brita's explanation, Sheltir becomes perplexed and decides to spare her, suspecting that this turn of events may be part of Ainz's grand plan. Furthermore, Sheltir is shocked to learn that an adventurer has been sent back to Reincarnated. Fueled by anger and a sense of neglect, she takes flight and summons several vampire wolves to track down the adventurer. However, all the wolves are swiftly eliminated, prompting Sheltir to investigate the cause. She discovers a new group lying in wait, and faced with this new adversary, Sheltir launches a fierce assault, transforming into her monstrous form. With her powerful Spewit lance in hand, she initiates an attack, only to be skillfully blocked by the leader of the group. Seizing the opportunity, the leader commands an elderly woman among them to activate her dress. The magic of the dress glows, and a beam of light shoots directly at Sheltir. As Sheltir feels her thoughts being manipulated, she quickly counterattacks, eliminating the person attempting to control her and their bodyguard. In the throne room of the Great Tomb of Nazarick, Ainz utilizes powerful magic to observe Sheltir Bloodfallen from a distance. He expresses frustration at having to rely on such potent items to address this problem. Unexpectedly, he receives a brief message from Narbril Gamma informing him that he has been summoned by the Reincarnated Adventurers Guild regarding the discovery of Sheltir. In Reincarnated, disguised as Mammon, Ainz attends a meeting organized by the guildmaster, Pluton Einsach. The meeting is attended by 3 other mithril-ranked adventurer teams, Rainbow, Skywolf, and Kralgra. They have all been assembled to address the vampire issue. Ainz, aiming to minimize the impact of Sheltir's appearance, fabricates a story in which he claims to be familiar with the vampire, referring to her as Haniopnioko, and asserts that he has been actively pursuing her. Additionally, he reveals possession of a sealing crystal containing a powerful 8th tier spell, which he plans to employ. Mammon insists that Darkness will confront Haniopnioko alone, emphasizing that involving additional individuals will only result in more casualties. Most participants in the room agree to Ainz's conditions, except for Igvarj from Kralgra, who insists that his team must join Mammon in the battle against the vampire. Reluctantly, Ainz accepts Igvarj's demand. However, during their journey to Sheltir's location, Igvarj is defeated and eliminated by Mare Bello Fior, one of Ainz's friends. Ainz and Albedo continue their advance towards Sheltir, with Ainz revealing his magical ring named Shooting Star. He hopes that the wish-granting power of the ring will reverse the mind control on Sheltier. To his surprise, the magic of the ring fails to work, leading Ainz to panic and order a retreat. He teleports himself and Albedo to a safer location. Albedo tries to inquire about the situation, but Ainz experiences a fit of rage. However, his undead nature helps him regain control, and he calms down, explaining to Albedo that the divine item's magic had no effect on Sheltier's mind control. He reveals that only world items possess the power to counter it. Initially believing there were no world items in the new world, Ainz urgently instructs Albedo to accompany him to the treasury to retrieve the world items stored there. In the treasury, Ainz and Albedo are accompanied by Yuri Alpha. As they reach the entrance to the inner sanctum, Ainz opens the gate and they encounter a humanoid octopus-like creature. Albedo mistakes it for her creator, Tabula Smaragdina, but quickly corrects herself upon realizing it is an imposter. This imposter is revealed to be Pandora's actor, a doppelganger serving as the area guardian of the treasury. Pandora's actor introduces himself and deduces their purpose, offering his assistance in retrieving the world items. Feeling embarrassed by Pandora's actor's playful behavior, Ainz privately requests him to act seriously and refrain from unnecessary antics. To emphasize his point, Ainz presents Pandora's actor with his own ring of Ainz Ooal Gown. Ainz then instructs Albedo to give her ring to Yuri and directs both of them to accompany him to the mausoleum. Within the mausoleum, Ainz reveals the presence of the Avatara, golem statues crafted in the likeness of each of the supreme beings. He explains that these statues serve as a tribute and memorial to his fellow comrades, as well as a secure storage space for their belongings. Ainz informs Albedo that one day there will be a statue of himself among them. Albedo, fearing that Ainz might leave them, pleads for him to stay with Nazarick indefinitely. Ainz cannot make that promise and instead entrusts Albedo with the responsibility of leading Nazarick and the other floor guardians if he is gone. Ainz informs Albedo of his decision to confront Sheltier alone, despite her objections. He states that it is his duty and expresses his desire to prevent his subordinates from fighting amongst themselves. Witnessing his unwavering determination, Albedo insists that he make one promise to her to return safely. Upon reaching the designated location, Ainz commands Ora Bella Fiora and Mare Bello Fior to split up and search the area using their respective world items, the depiction of nature and society, and avarice and generosity. He instructs them to scout for any unwelcome intruders. Meanwhile, Demiurge returns to the Great Tomb of Nazarick and meets with Cocytus and Albedo. Curious about the situation, Demiurge learns that Ainz intends to confront Sheltier Bloodfallen alone. Albedo firmly expresses her belief in Ainz's inevitable victory, while Demiurge expresses concern for his master's safety. He reminds Albedo of her past criticism when Ainz went to Erantle to become an adventurer. Demiurge desires to support Ainz but is stopped by Cocytus, who received direct orders from Ainz to prevent any interference. Demiurge reluctantly agrees to Cocytus' decision, but not without asserting that if Ainz were to fall, he expects Albedo to step down from her position as Overseer Guardian. Surprisingly, Albedo accepts this demand, still maintaining her unwavering faith in Ainz's abilities and his safe return. Ainz arrives at the location where Sheltier is in standby mode, sensing the perfect opportunity to engage in battle. He enhances his abilities by casting spells that boost his stats and equips quick change items to adapt swiftly to various situations. Finally, he readies himself to unleash the devastating power of super tier magic, Fallen Down. As the spell nears completion, its tremendous force inflicts massive damage, leaving behind a vast crater where the floor guardian once stood. However, Sheltier reveals that she is not only equipped with Spewit Lance but also wearing her resilient Valkyrie armor. Though seemingly undamaged, she acknowledges that Ainz's attack did cause some harm. Now, she prepares to retaliate against her master, readying herself for an offensive assault. A fierce battle ensues, accompanied by verbal taunts and powerful attacks from both sides. Initially, Sheltier gains the upper hand, but Ainz utilizes his experience to strategically turn the tide. Unwilling to be outdone, Sheltier summons her Einherjar, a physical double that adds complexity to the fight. Yet, Ainz cleverly counters the combined assault and manages to defeat the duplicate. The surroundings brighten, only to reveal a vast sandy expanse. However, to Ainz's surprise, Sheltier remains unharmed by this devastating attack. She taunts him, asking if he has any last words. Refusing to admit defeat, Ainz maintains his confidence and declares that Sheltier was careless in her actions. He boldly claims that everything is proceeding according to his grand plan. As Ainz calmly faces Sheltier, he expresses gratitude towards her overconfidence, which allows him to execute his plan. Sheltier begins to suspect that Ainz has been deceiving her all along, realizing that he possessed knowledge of her abilities from the start. Ainz, adorned in shiny silver armor recognized as Touchme's, counterattacks and inflicts a deep wound on Sheltier with his katana, Take Mikazuchi Mk8. Boasting that he possesses the combined power of all 41 supreme beings, Ainz overwhelms Sheltier with a series of attacks using various divine weapons. When Sheltier manages to pierce Ainz with her Spewit lance, she believes victory is within reach, but she is surprised by a voice coming from Ainz's watch. Ainz declares the battle over, enraging Sheltier, who continues her assault. However, she is caught off guard by a skill activated by an unknown source. As Ainz prepares to unleash his powerful super tier magic, Sheltier charges forward, aiming for a fatal blow. However, her attention is diverted by the activation of a skill, allowing Ainz to complete his spell. Sheltier is consumed by oblivion, admitting defeat to her master in her final moments. Ainz then informs Mayor Bellofior about Sheltier's situation and returns to Nazarick to revive her. The other floor guardians remain cautious, fearing that Sheltier may still be under the influence of mind control even after resurrection. Preparations are made to restrain her if necessary. When Sheltier is successfully revived, she discovers a gap in her memory and realizes her breast pads are missing, much to the annoyance of her colleagues. Ainz assumes responsibility for the events that transpired and reflects on the time he spent with his comrades. Recognizing the need to enhance their power in the face of potential threats, Ainz learns from Albedo that Nazarick has discovered the Great Lake, the domain of the Lizardmen. Months later, Darkness is promoted within the Adventurers Guild, and Enfira and Lizzie settle in Karn Village, receiving a warm welcome from Henri Emot and Lupus Regina Beta. Elsewhere, Gaze of Stronov encounters a despondent Brain Unglaus in the city, and in the Slain Theocracy, the leader of the Black Scripture reports their encounters with a powerful vampire to the 6 cardinals. Although concerned, they emphasize the importance of being cautious towards anyone capable of defeating such a formidable creature. Realizing their reduced strength, the cardinals propose sending a team to gather information and monitor the area. They believe that caution and knowledge can compensate for their weakened state. As Mammon, Ainz prepares for another adventure, asking Sheltier to activate Gargantua before leaving the guild. Now the captain of the Black Scripture is walking down a hallway after a meeting when he comes across a tiny, strong-looking girl. They discuss the recent mission the Black Scripture returned from and how they encountered a mysterious undead. In a cave, a dragon awakens from its slumber after detecting someone nearby. The dragon is revealed to be Platinum Dragon Lord, and the person he detected was his old friend, Rigrit Burz Koral. The two discuss how Rigrit passed on the magic item she received from the Dragon Lord to a young one. In the Riesti's kingdom, the king and the nobles are discussing some important kingdom matters. They are greeted by the appearance of the king's daughter, Princess Renner, and her guard Climb. After exchanging a few words of affection, the two pairs separate. The king asks Gazef of the character of the man who saved him, Ainz Ooal Gown. Gazef vouches for Ainz, declaring him an ally. Meanwhile, Momonga and Nabe are confronting an approaching dust storm. The storm, as it turns out, is a gigantic basilisk being driven by Hamsuk. Just as the basilisk is about to run over the pair, Momonga beheads it and decides to return to Nazarick. Now donning his Ainz Ooal Gown appearance, Momonga hovers above Nazarick, concealed with magic. He is greeted by Mare, who returns his ring of Ainz Ooal Gown, which he uses to teleport to the 9th floor. Albedo greets her master in a seductive manner, causing Ainz to momentarily become shocked before his nervousness around women kicks in. Ainz then orders Albedo to discuss with him new information that he acquired from the Adventurers Guild. Ainz discusses what he has learned about the location of where Nazarick is situated and the surrounding locations and nations. Ainz questions the whereabouts of Sheltier Bloodfallen, and the scene switches to a drunk vampire in Sue's chef's bar on the 9th floor. She has been depressed by her rebellion, though involuntarily believes it brings her loyalty to Ainz in question. They are greeted by Eclair, who attempts to cheer Sheltier, but sinks her into a deeper depression. Back with Ainz, although Sheltier has repented her time from being brainwashed by the enemy, Albedo still believes she deserves to be punished. Ainz considers her opinion, before turning his attention to a new area of interest, the Great Lake, where Cocytus is stationed. At the Great Lake, Zaryusu Shasha arrives at his fish farm where he finds his brother Shasaryu Shasha. The two share a few words of discussion, Zaryusu thanking his brother for his help in making this farm possible. Shasaryu turns to the topic on Zaryusu settling down, though Zaryusu is unsure due to his status as a traveler. Just as his brother leaves the village of Green Claw, he is visited by an undead that blots out the sky. It declares their doom to the lizardmen below. The lizardmen of Green Claw discuss what their response should be to the declaration of their extermination. After some debate, Zaryusu proclaims that because the messenger specified them as the second sacrifice, it implied that the other tribes were threatened as well. In the past, the lizardmen were at war with one another due to overpopulation and food shortages. Greenclaw formed an alliance with Razortail and Smallfang against the alliance of Yellow Speckle and Sharp Edge. Greenclaw and its allies were victorious, while Yellow Speckle and Sharp Edge were wiped out. The 5 tribes could ally with one another to form a large enough army to defeat their would-be destroyers. Many in the tribe do not believe it to be possible, as several of the surviving lizardmen from the defeated tribes were absorbed by the other tribes and may still hold a grudge against Greenclaw and its allies. Shasryu Shasha concurs with Zaryusu's wisdom and appoints him as an emissary of Greenclaw to gather the tribes of Red Eye and Dragon Tusk. In a private meeting between Zaryusu and his brother, it's revealed that one of Zaryusu's motivations for uniting the tribes to fight their new adversary is to reduce the population of the lizardmen in the wetlands. Years ago, there was a massive war among the lizardmen over resources due to their growing population. The war that caused 2 of the tribes to disband, and Zaryusu feels there is no way to avoid another war like that. When asked what he will do should the tribes refuse to join their alliance, Zaryusu replies that he will eliminate them first, before riding off with Rororo. The scene switches to the Great Tomb of Nazarick, where Demiurge asks where Ainz is, to which Eclair replies that Ainz would be spending time at a human village. Since Sebastian is away, Eclair has taken up all the butler's duties to compensate. The penguin does not mind, as he is motivated to work harder so that he may one day sit on the throne of Nazarick. Zaryusu arrives at Red Eye and is given an audience with the acting chieftain. Much to his surprise, the chief is an albino female who introduces herself as Krush Lulu. Krush's exoticism arouses him to the point he proposes to her on the spot. Her attraction to him also comes out. However, the two regain enough of their sense to address the more pressing matter, the threat of extermination. Krush explains Red Eye plans to evacuate the wetlands, though Zaryusu advises against it. He warns that the other tribes will retaliate should one of the other tribes tries to escape to a new habitat, and possibly might start another intertribal war. Taking note of the veiled threat, Krush reluctantly agrees to ally her tribe with Greenclaw in face of extinction. When Zaryusu asks how her tribe managed to survive the shortage of food during the previous war, Krush is hesitant to say. In the end, she tells him in anguish of her tribe's desperate story of survival, resorting to cannibalism. Krush is ashamed of the past, though is comforted by Zaryusu. At the site of construction, the Great Forest of Top, Intoma Zeta gives Cocytus a series of scrolls to use for his upcoming campaign. Intoma herself has been ordered to monitor Cocytus's progress at Ainz's orders. With the alliance with Red Eye secured, Zaryusu's next destination is Dragon Tusk. He is joined by Krush, and after arriving at Dragon Tusk's village are met with hostility. Zenbaru Gugu approaches them and demands a duel with Zaryusu. Zenbaru Gugu orders his tribe that he will duel Zaryusu Shasha. Should the latter win, he would be Dragon Tusk's new chieftain. Zenbaru is eager to fight against Zaryusu, seeing him as a top-grade warrior. Zaryusu agrees on the condition that Krush Lulu be spared should he fall. As the duel between the two progresses over time, Zenbaru manages to land a blow on Zaryusu, but he eventually loses due to exhaustion from one of Frostpane's abilities. After the match, Zenbaru later hosts a feast for the two. At the feast, Zenbaru pledges to have his tribe join the war against the Supreme One, but asks if they can win. Zaryusu doesn't know yet. He feels as if the enemy possessing overwhelming strength were arrogant enough to deliver the warnings to the tribes. Zaryusu plans to exploit that arrogance when their forces clash, though Krush believes it's better to surrender and risk enslavement. Zaryusu counters that if they choose enslavement they may risk losing much more, but Krush believes it to be the best course. Despite their different views, Krush asks Zaryusu not to die, to which he complies, not until she gives him her answer. 4 days before the undead invasion, the trio then arrive at the village of Razortail, where the other remaining tribes have gathered. At the chieftain meeting, the chiefs decide to create a small elite unit composed of the chieftains. To compensate for the lack of leadership in the field, they designate the head warriors of each tribe to be the commanders. Cocytus orders his army to advance, whilst Ainz Ooal Gown has been informed of the development. Back at the Great Lake, the undead army composed of skeletons, zombie beasts, etc. march to attack Razortail's village. Shasryu Shasha tells the gathered lizardmen not to waver and attack. The two armies engage, and thanks to the lizardmen's morale and preparation they are gaining the upper hand. Cocytus, seeing that he has underestimated his opponents, calls Demiurge for advice so as not to disgrace Ainz Ooal Gown. Demiurge instead asks Cocytus to think of the various disadvantages that Ainz Ooal Gown set him up with in leading this army. He proposes that perhaps winning is not the goal of Ainz, but instead reminds him that Ainz wishes to test Cocytus in thinking for himself. Before he could elaborate further, Demiurge apologizes and cuts the call. Faced with little options, Cocytus deploys Iguva. The Elder Lick easily defeats the head warriors, causing the lizardmen in the battlefield to withdraw. The chieftains, seeing this obstacle from afar, deduce Iguva to be the commander. Using Rororo as a shield, Zaryusu, Zenbaru, and Krush engage the undead close enough for them to attack him. The Elder Lick summons skeleton warriors to combat his opponents. While Zenbaru fought against the skeletons, Zaryusu and Krush faces off against Iguva. After freeing Zaryusu from Iguva's fear spell, Krush was attacked by the Furious Lick. Zaryusu engages the Lick one-on-one. Unwilling to use Frostpane's area effect ability as his comrades were too close, Zaryusu instead creates a mist around him. Iguva, unable to see him, lowers his guard, allowing the lizardman to stab him in the skull. Iguva attempts to choke Zaryusu but succumbs to his wound. The death of Iguva signals the undead army's defeat and a victory for the lizardmen. Cocytus looks on in disbelief but also in admiration of the display. Intoma then informs him that Ainz wishes to speak to him. The lizardmen tribes are celebrating their victory over Iguva and the undead army. The chieftains discuss Frostpane's abilities and its wielder Zaryusu Shasha. Zenbaru Gugu decides to go wake Zaryusu, who is resting after the battle. Inside a hut, Zaryusu awakens and notices Krush wanting some sexy time with him but is interrupted by Zenbaru, who decides to leave the couple alone and allows them to get frisky with each other. Meanwhile, in the Great Tomb of Nazarick, Ainz holds a meeting with his guardians. He opens the meeting by welcoming and introducing Victim, guardian of the 8th floor, to the rest of the other guardians. Ainz tells Victim that he intends to use his special ability should a person attack them with a world item. Next, he turns to Demiurge. He asks about the sheep used to make scrolls. Demiurge gives them the name Abelian sheep and describes them as two-legged sheep beasts. Ainz, turning to Sheltier, who is still depressed over her rebellion. Sheltier begs for a punishment over it, which Ainz accepts and tells her that he will give her one later. Lastly, he turns to Cocytus, who apologizes for his defeat against the lizardmen. Ainz asks him why he lost, and Cocytus admits that he had underestimated his foes and lacked information on them as well as the land topography. He also states that the undead army lacked commanders to give orders on the battlefield. Ainz is impressed and delighted at what he said, but that he still needs to be punished for his defeat. Ainz orders Cocytus to exterminate the lizardmen alone as his punishment. However, he makes a request that the lizardmen be shown mercy, for which Albedo yells at him. Ainz orders her to be silent, and Cocytus states that the lizardmen are more beneficial to Nazarick alive rather than dead. He says that they are capable warriors and is against killing them for that reason. The idea is rejected at first initially, but Demiurge suggests an idea to Ainz that they can keep the lizardmen alive as an experiment to see if they can govern them without the use of fear. Ainz then accepts the idea and orders that Gargantua be activated, and then he calls the meeting to a close. After the meeting with their master came to an end, Cocytus thanks Demiurge for his idea. Ainz returns to his chambers happily and realizes that someone has sprayed perfume on his bed. Back at the Lizardmen village, another undead army is spotted across the Great Lake, and they notice the magical equipment that they carry. Krush then notices that a 6th-tier spell called Control Weather, which Zaryusu suggests is the power of the Great One. When the army clears a path for a skeleton wrapped in a black cloak, they notice him casting a powerful spell that freezes the wetlands solid, forcing the Lizardmen to retreat to higher ground. Zenbaru theorizes that he is the Great One based on his overwhelming power. They then watch a giant golem throw a cubed rock in the middle of the frozen lake. Then the skeletons form a staircase with their own bodies, and a royal procession being formed as Ainz and his guardians walk up to the top of the cubed rock, and he sits on his throne. He sends messengers to the lizardmen asking them to send out a delegate to speak with him. Shasryu and Zaryusu go out to meet them. They introduce themselves, and Albedo orders Demiurge to make them bow down, which he uses his skills to force them to bow down. Ainz then informs them that if they manage to defeat Cocytus in 4 hours in battle, he will leave them alone. Shasryu attempts to surrender, but Ainz rejects it and leaves them after telling them that the ice will melt. He and his guardians exit by using a gate after bidding them farewell. After the meeting, the tribal chieftains meet and decide to call their warriors to arms, but Zaryusu wants only the 5 of them to fight so the last leader alive can represent the tribes after they die. When they decide Krush should be the one to stay behind, she objects, but Zaryusu talks her into it. He embraces her once more before she then asks him to impregnate her. After teleporting from the Great Lake, Victim takes his leave from his master and the rest of the floor guardians to return to guard Nazarick. At the newly built base in the Great Forest of Tob, Aura apologizes for its shabbiness, but Ainz Ooal Gown thinks it is satisfactory. Ainz also takes notice of a throne constructed out of bones, learning that it is a gift from Demiurge, who offers it to him. Ainz is hesitant to accept it and instead orders Sheltier to come forth and kneel to act as a chair for him. Although this act is supposed to serve as a punishment for her rebellion, the vampire, however, feels ecstasy and joy while the other guardians, except Albedo who wanted to be the chair for Ainz, praise Ainz's decision. While so, Ainz decides to observe how the lizardman reacted to his ultimatum. He uses the mirror of remote viewing to observe their preparations. While shifting through the images, he comes across Zaryusu Shasha and Krush Lulu making love with each other. Ainz is shocked and quickly cancels the magic. Despite the rest of the Guardians being disgusted at their actions, Ainz quickly gives an explanation that the lizardmen are doing it to keep one's race alive from facing extinction. At dawn, Cocytus awaits the lizardmen. To start the impending duel, the Nazaric Elder Guarders start clanging their weapons and feed in a rhythmic beat. Zaryusu, the chieftains, and several lizardmen warriors watch as Cocytus easily slashes several trees. As the lizardmen charge at Cocytus, the floor guardian uses frost aura to encase most of the warriors in ice. The only ones left are the chieftains. Suku, Juju, and Kyuku Zuzu lead the attack. Suku shoots at Cocytus with his slingshot while Kyuku continues the charge. Cocytus is protected by a shield, and thus is immune to long-range attacks. When Kyuku attempts to spear Cocytus, he is bisected by the god-slaying Emperor Blade. On the other hand, Zenmaru attempts to use his martial arts against Cocytus, but his attacks are easily deflected. Zaryusu attempts to stab him with Frost Pain, but the Guardian catches the blade between his fingers. Afterwards, Sukiyu tries attacking Cocytus again but to no avail. Seeing his attacks annoying, Cocytus uses piercing icicles and kills him. The next to fall is Zenmaru when he tries to rush towards the Guardian, only to succeed in decapitating himself. Cocytus, seeing that only Shasaryu and Zaryusu are left, parsing them to survive for as long as they have. Cocytus, respecting his opponent, asks them to declare their names to him. After the introductions are done, Shasaryu uses magic to manipulate the mud to attack him, but are rebuffed by Cocytus's defenses. Later, Zaryusu uses Icy Burst to cloak the area in mist. The older brother attempts to strike Cocytus with his blade and is killed. Zaryusu is the last one to attack, to which Cocytus easily catches his blade once again. However, the blade begins slipping from Cocytus's grasp. Frost Pain had been coated with blood, and as it slides closer to Cocytus's chest, he declares the tactic to be magnificent. Unfortunately, the blade is blocked by Cocytus's passive ability, and Zaryusu is later slain. Cocytus is praised by his master, who designates him as the ruler of the lizardmen. Cocytus asks what will be done with the slain lizardmen, to which Ainz responds that they will be used to create undead. However, Cocytus states that would be a waste, as the lizardmen possess a warrior's spirit that can contribute to Nazaric. Ainz, surprised at Cocytus's input, decides to accept it. Later, Cocytus then brings the last remaining chieftain, Krush Lulu, before Ainz. Being the lizardmen's representative, Krush declares the tribe's official surrender and allegiance to their ruler. Ainz offers Krush a chance to bring Zaryusu from the dead, but in return, the albino must act as Nazaric's spy amongst her people and be on the lookout for possible rebellion. Zaryusu awakens to find Krush hugging him and Ainz Ooal Gown commenting on his successful return from the dead. Zaryusu is weak yet in awe by the revelation that Ainz possesses such power. Zaryusu and Krush prostrate themselves before Ainz, acknowledging him as a supreme being. Just as Ainz leaves, Zaryusu makes a request that his comrades be resurrected. Ainz considers the request and tells him to preserve the body. Zaryusu eventually succumbs to his ordeal and collapses in Krush's arms. Sebastian enters the Magician's Guild inside the city of Re-Estais. He asks the clerk about a spell in the directory, and the clerk tells him that it is a first-tier spell called Floating Board, which is used to transport items. Interested in the spell, Sebastian leaves after buying a magic scroll for that spell and walks outside the building. As he is walking through the alleyways, he spots a man throwing a sack out the door of his establishment. The man walks back into his house, so Sebas has Shadow Demon cut open the sacks not to determine if it is dangerous. Finding no danger, he begins to walk by it, but a badly bruised injured person grabs his ankle, forcing his attention. Sebastian sees that it is a woman that is inside the sack. The man who threw the sack out comes back and asks Sebas what he is doing. Irritated, Sebas pockets his scroll to then grab the man by the shirt, demanding to know who the woman is. The man states that she is one of his employees. Sebas decides to take her with him, but the man protests by saying that if Sebastian takes her, then he'll be killed by the criminal organization called Eight Fingers. Remembering his creator's motto, Sebas gives the man money to flee the country before taking the woman with him back to the mansion. Back at the mansion, Solution greets Sebas and notices that he is carrying a human. She asks Sebas about the severely injured woman and he says that he found her and asks Solution to assess her condition. Solution inquires why he did not simply leave her for the temples. He makes an excuse and still has her treated. Sometime later, Solution returns and tells Sebas that the woman has syphilis and 2 other diseases, several cracked ribs and fingers, tendons in her arm and leg torn, her teeth had been forcefully pulled, an anal fissure. Seems like she really loves some rough love-making time. Sebas asks her to heal her, to which she hesitates at first, but ultimately complies. Sebas leaves to go buy food while Solution heals the woman. When Sebas returns with food, the woman is awake and fully healed. Sebas serves her the food, which she thanks him for and eats quickly. Sebas informs the woman that he will protect her and comforts her when she cries. He then asks for her name. She says her name is Tuer and Sebas gives her his name. Sebas leaves to give Tuer time to rest. Meanwhile, Reincarnated wakes up from a nightmare about Shell Tear Blood Fallen. He goes downstairs to meet Gazef Stronov, who found him and brought him back to his house. Brain then tells Gazef that there are things stronger than both of them. At night, guards are patrolling a field when they are stabbed and turned into undead by Tia and Tina, and then they burn the field that is filled with drugs. Meanwhile, the 8 Fingers hold a meeting and discuss their business. Hilma Signius, leader of the drug trade department, is asked about one of her fields being attacked. She says that it might affect her distribution. Zero, head of the security department, offers to help guard the fields, but Hilma refuses. Kako Doll, head of the slave trade, asks Zero to do a task for him. He asks Zero to retrieve a woman who was supposed to be disposed of, which Zero accepts. Ainz Ooal Gown in his Momonga disguise is busy counting his pay earned from the adventurer quests he completed. Narbril Gamma arrives to report she has acquired the samples of ore which Ainz plans to test using the exchange box. Climb is joined by Gazef Stronov, who offers to spar with him. The 2 parry blades with each other. However, Climb is no match for the warrior captain, becoming exhausted in the end. Climb is told he lacks talent but should continue to gain experience. For his hard work, Gazef gives Climb a potion to heal himself. As Climb leaves, Gazef tells his vice captain that Climb's power is capped at gold, thus limiting how much stronger he could be going forward. Climb returns to the palace and encounters Marquis Revan and Prince Zanuck. Zanuck sarcastically greets Climb, asking if he is going to see his sister, who he refers to as a monster. Climb is annoyed by Zanuck insulting his girl. He respectfully declares Renner to be compassionate. Zanuck still asks Climb to pass on a message to Renner. He warns that their older brother Barbaro plans on using Renner as a political marriage chip, whereas Zanuck offers, if Renner comes to his side, he will allow her to retire to the frontier once he becomes king. Climb arrives at Renner's chambers, where he finds her drinking tea with her friend, Lachius, who introduces him to Tina. There, Renner is shown the document Blue Roses retrieved from the raid on 8 Fingers drug plantation, and easily deciphers the message, determining it is a list of various locations throughout the capital city. It's believed that the locations are 8 Fingers affiliates, but Lachius notices the underground brothel isn't on the list. She proposes that Blue Rose is targeted and asks Climb to inform Tia, Evil Eye, and Gagarin of their findings. Meanwhile, Sebastian returns to the mansion and is greeted by Tuer serving as a maid. Seeing her nervousness, Sebas assures her that her cooking is delicious, causing her to blush. Solution asks Sebas if they should inform Ainz that they have accepted a human as a maid. At the end of their conversation, the mansion's front door is knocked on by 2 strangers. The 2 enter the mansion and introduce themselves as Stefan Hyvish, a patrol officer of the law, and Succulent, who is a representative filing a complaint against Lady Solution. Solution nonchalantly retires and orders her butler to handle it. During the talks, it's learned that Succulent is a representative of the brothel that claims that Sebas kidnapped one of their employees. Stefan warns Sebas that he will one day return the girl to Succulent. After they leave, Solution asks how he wishes to proceed. Sebas replies that he wishes to take a stroll. Once Sebas leaves the mansion, Solution decides to call Ainz. She reports that Sebastian may have gone rogue and confirms she has evidence to prove it. Climb heads to the inn where Gagarin and Evili are staying. He informs the duo that Lachius wants both of them to mobilize for a raid on a brothel housing slaves. They discuss power as they note Climb's training, and mention Lachius Kilinaram, which once belonged to the Black Knight of the 13 Heroes, which is demonic in nature. Gagarin also remembers the moments she walked in on Lachius debating with the blade, as she was fighting the dark influence to maintain control over it, but was more than strong enough to be responsible with it. As the conversation goes on, Evili informs the both of them of the new adventurer team, Warrior Momonga and Castor Nabe, with the wise king of the forest as a pet, leaving Gagarin astounded by their reported feats. Climb wishes to be capable of such strength someday, but Evili advises him to go at his own pace, and not to lose his humanity in pursuit of power. Meanwhile, Brain Unglaus is still living in the attic of Gazef's home and goes out to run errands for him, and goes past a crowd watching a group of drunk men assaulting a boy for simply bumping into them. Climb also goes by the crowd and moves to stop the matter. Whereas Brain walks away viewing it as not his problem, he turns when he notices Seba's incredible movements and goes to see the incident. Both witnesses Seba's move with skill and speed to resolve the matter in one punch. Climb moves in to give a healing potion to the boy and sees Seba's walking away. They separately follow the butler into an alleyway, where Climb enthusiastically asks Sebas for a quick lesson in strength after witnessing him recently. Sebas examines his hands and sword, noting it is the young man's reserve weapon due to a slight ding on the blade edge. He sees Climb as trustworthy and decides to give him a lesson, how to overcome fear of death. By flooding Climb's senses with killing intent, Climb dodges at the last possible instance by overcoming his fear by thinking of Renner. Sebas congratulates Climb for surviving, as the shock alone would have killed him. When Climb asked who Sebas was, he merely said he was an old man who knew how to handle himself. Sebas, wanting to give another lesson, is interrupted by a panicked Brain, who, having witnessed this around the corner, is moved by Climb's ability to overcome intense fear and asks to also learn from Sebas. However, the trio are beset by 5 assassins sent by Succulent. Sebas downs 3 of them alone, leaving the last 2 to be handled by Brain and Climb. The young duo notes that Sebas' strength is incredible, maybe even beyond the power of Brain and Gazef combined. Sebas uses their fight as a teaching moment to instruct Climb to be aware of his fear to keep himself alive, and the boy musters strength to use the martial art / to incapacitate the last standing assassin, whereas Brain finished moments earlier. With their attackers down, Sebas uses a skill to easily interrogate one of them on where to find Succulent and 8 Fingers. Climb is sickened to learn criminals are finding loopholes in the law to keep slaves and wishes to aid his new comrades in storming the hideout. The trio move together out of a grown respect for each other, and they head for Succulent's brothel, which happens to be exactly the same place Sebas rescued Tuer from. Sebas, Brain and Climb arrive at the brothel and use 2 entryways, the front door to the main brothel, and the side entrance to the underground storage area. Climb and Brain take the latter door, while Sebas charges the front. Sebas forewarns the duo that if needed, he will kill the opposition inside. They both understand, only asking that the leaders of 8 Fingers, Kako Doll and Succulent must be captured alive. Sebas easily removes the steel door, knocks away the guards, and comes across Staff and Hivish, mercilessly assaulting a slave girl for pleasure. Upon seeing the gruesome sight, Sebas intensely slaps Staffan into a bloody state, and after the constable pleads for mercy with money, Sebas concludes that he is unworthy of life and kicks him in half. Brain and Climb locate a trapdoor leading to the underground storage. While Brain scouts further, Climb stands watch, but encounters Coco Doll and Succulent arrive by a hidden passage in front of him. Succulent uses his illusion magic to gravely injure Climb, until Brain returns and defeats him with his god / technique. The trio are successful in apprehending the 2 members of 8 Fingers and return to their respective homes. Brain returns to Gazef's home and the 2 have dinner, discussing Climb's progress and Shell Tear Bloodfallen. Sebas returns to the manor, only for Solution to be in her Pleiades attire,
yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
telling him that Ainz is waiting for him inside. Climb returns to Princess Renner, who is pleased that he is safe. After Climb retires for the night, Renner calls in the maid that she knows is spying on her to tell her about how amazing Climb was, only for her to actually plan on killing the maid for disrespecting Climb within her ears. Late at night, Zero gathers the remaining members of 6 Arms to search the perpetrators of the raid on the brothel for opposing the 8 Fingers. Sebastian is called before Ainz Ooal Gown, who has brought with him Demiurge, Victim, and Cossidus. Seeing Sebas sweating, Ainz tosses a handkerchief to his feet. Solution Epsilon brings Tuer per Ainz's orders. Demiurge readies to use controller magic on her, but Ainz permits her to stand of her own will as she is brave enough to look Ainz straight in the face. Given that Sebas was ordered to be discreet in his information gathering but has brought unwanted attention, Ainz will forgive him if he kills Tuer. Stunned by this order at first, he seriously attacks her as she readies herself for death and fully trusts him. Mid-attack, Cossidus blocks him as this was a test, confirming to Ainz that the attack was unquestionably a killing blow as ordered, proving Sebas' loyalty is unfeigned. Determining that enough information was gathered, Ainz declares the mission complete and leaves with Victim to Nazarick. Sebas does not offer an apology to Tuer, instead offering to petition his master for memory alteration magic for her to live peacefully among humans. However, she does not wish to leave, as her life was small and difficult. Even growing up, she was always hungry as the feudal lord of her land took most of the crops grown, leaving her people with next to nothing. but serving under him and his kindness, she wants to continue as a maid so long as she can still be with him. Sebas then decides to ask Ainz to allow Tuer to continue in his care as a maid in Nazarick, but only if she has no human world attachments. Tuer's only attachment is her little sister. Sebas goes to petition Ainz, and before he goes, Tuer kisses him. Sebas returns to the meeting room, teased by Demiurge for his flushed face. Ainz returns, asking if Demiurge is satisfied by the test. As Sebas wanted to overwrite her memories, Demiurge proposes killing her for making certain no knowledge of them is leaked, which is rejected by Ainz, not wanting to kill needlessly with nothing to gain from it. When discussing where to have her, Sebas opts to have her serve as his maid, stunning the others in the room. As Sebas pleads his case, Demiurge is quick to point out the negatives of his decision, and as they argue, Momonger remembers Touch Me and Albert Elaine Otto arguing over which mission with the best drop rate to take on. Returning to the present, Cocytus interjects that the both of them stop arguing in front of Ainz, but he is happy for this nostalgic bickering. As he laughs, the same aura that quells him asserts, and he calmly asks for Tuer to return to pass his decision. When seeing her resemblance and hearing her full name, Ainz asks if she desires to move to the Great Tomb she would if Sebas were there. Ainz decides she will be a provisional maid, removing Sebas as the Pleiades leader and activating Oriole Omega to take over. All sentries withdraw and Tuer is granted the protection of Ainz's name. Before their departure, Demiurge requests grain for the omnivore. Abelian sheep and Ainz has Sebas procure the supply from the capital. Alone, Demiurge asks if Ainz knew the girl, replying he knew her sister and has her diary which provided him with a greater knowledge of the new world. Feeling indebted and wanting to repay her kindness by protecting Tuer, Demiurge lastly requests Ainz to examine a location, under the belief it will bring benefit to Nazarick. The next morning, Sebas and Solution are off to acquire the grain for Demiurge, leaving Tuer alone to tend to the mansion. Elsewhere, Princess Renner holds a meeting on the Eight Fingers with the Blue Roses, as Climb helped capture Kako Doll, head of the Slave Trade Division. Due to such a blow to the Syndicate, the raids are scheduled for the same day to attack Eight Fingers while they're still vulnerable. By day's end, Sebas and Solution return to the manor, finding a note by Six Arms that states that they took Tuer to their base, demanding Sebas come alone. Solution reminds Sebas of Ainz's decree, and the Pleiades message their master. As Ainz is preoccupied, he relays to Albedo to send support to Sebas. While she questions saving an inferior being like a human, Ainz had promised her his protection in his name, and demands support. Albedo relents and moves to send reinforcements for Demiurge to command on-site. After communications to Ainz end, Albedo privately remarks her thoughts that his renaming of himself after the guild is ridiculous. The guild flag lies on the floor, having been replaced on the wall by the original Mamunga banner. Demiurge gathers the Pleiades, Mare, and Sheltir. Sebas leaves the room for them to discuss their mission to destroy Eight Fingers. Demiurge has Intoma display a holographic image of an individual that is off limits to all in the squadron, especially Sheltir, due to her bloodlust and habit of playing with her prey. Concluding his plan, Demiurge receives contact from a shadow demon that an 8th base has been located and sends Mare with Intoma to go there. Fearing that Ainz might grow weary of the floor guardians should they fail him again, Demiurge finalizes the operation and vows that failure is not an option. In the royal encampment, Climb applies a stealth coating to his mithril armor to move in the night. He gathers with other squad captains to hear the Blue Roses reviewing the plan for the raid on Eight Fingers. Gagarin greets Climb and Brain, who says Gagarin wanted to make sure Climb was safe with him. Brain and Gagarin joke about, and she leaves a positive impression on Brain. Arriving at one of the designated hideouts, Lockmeyer deactivates his invisibility to give a report. 5 members of Six Arms are inside, and a girl is held captive in a cell. Due to Six Arms being present, the group believes they should fall back, but stop as they see Sebas arriving. Both parties explain their situations and adjust the plan. Sebas will directly handle Six Arms and focus the security to the front door, while Climb, Brain, and Lockmeyer covertly infiltrate the stronghold. As Sebas enters the front gate, he is welcomed by 4, not 5, of the remaining 6 arms. Sebas asks if Zero is up there, and when they affirm it, Sebas points to Solution to scout the balcony. 6 arms, misinterpreting this gesture, states it will do him no good as they will make him suffer, whereas Sebas counters that if they attack him at all once, they may survive at least 10 seconds. As they introduce themselves, Sebas is immediately angered by Davernok's title of Undead King as he is an inferior undead, and instantly blows his head off, following with decapitating Edstrong and punching Peshurian's head clean off, and finally killing the frightened Malmbust. causing a fright amidst the Eight Fingers subordinates. Solution relays to Sebas that Zero is not among the patrons on the balcony, and Sebas gives himself another 10 seconds to slaughter the henchmen. All the while, Brain, Climb, and Lockmeyer infiltrate the stronghold with no issues and reach the cell holding Tuer. Elsewhere, Hilma wakes up from sleeping and finds her manor encased in shrubbery. Behind her stands Mare, who asks if she is the most important person in the manor. Hilma affirms this, trying to affectionately get answers from Mare, but as Mare is relieved to have found her, Hilma is frightened due to Intoma in a corner eating the twitching arm of one of her dead servants. Mare shatters her leg and drags her away by the hair, leaving Intoma to empty the manor of valuables. As Intoma snacks on the severed arm, Gagarin arrives behind her, asking what she's eating. Shocked at the sight, Gagarin readies to fight. While Intoma offers a parley, Gagarin cannot do so as an adventurer. When Gagarin shatters the ground, loose debris scuffs Intoma's attire. Enraged at the disrespect of something granted to her by the supreme beings, Intoma fights seriously. She summons Bladebug and nearly kills Gagarin, but Tia arrives to save her. As the Blue Rose duo fight Intoma, they have difficulty with her array of insect-themed magics. Intoma replaces Bladebug with Whip Millipede and overpowers them until Evil Eye arrives. Evil Eye offends Intoma for her appearance and says she's weaker than Evil Eye, causing the insectoid maid to go into a frenzied attack. Evil Eye frees Gagarin to heal Tia's wounds as she battles Intoma. When Intoma unleashes a swarm, Evil Eye, seeing her magic similar to that of a demon god, uses Vermin Bane and poisons Intoma. Intoma's face falls off and her lip bug dies, causing her original voice to assert, causing Gagarin to taunt her, sending Intoma with her true form into a bloodlust. Gagarin knocks Intoma away, but the clash between her armor and the maid uniform causes her concern. The trio then uses an onslaught of their strongest attacks and spells to wear Intoma down. With the maid out of stamina and no more bugs in her arsenal, Tia moves in for the kill. But Jaldabaoth appears to save Intoma and has her flown away by a carrier bug. Evil Eye warns her comrades to flee with the utmost haste, but Jaldabaoth attacks and withstands each of Evil Eye's magic. Using his Hellfire Wall, he hits Tia and Gagarin, killing them unintentionally, even offering condolences to Evil Eye. He used the spell based on the standard of Evil Eye's power but is surprised by the difference in their weakness. Enraged, Evil Eye attacks but is unable to do any point of damage to the demon. Deciding to fight him, Evil Eye is stopped when Momonga arrives, landing in between her and Jaldabaoth, and asks which one of them is his foe. As Momonga demands to know who his enemy is, Evil Eye states her name and rank to identify herself as an ally, and requests a team-up. The two powerhouses clash, which stirs a heartbeat in Evil Eye. A small parasite breaches his shoulder plate, but Momon brushes it off as insignificant. Momon takes Evil Eye fangirling in his arms to safety. Elsewhere in the royal capital, Brain, Climb, and Lockmeyer escort Tuer from the holding cell. When they round a corner, they are trapped by Zero himself, who downs Lockmeyer with a punch to his chest. Seeing Brain in person, Zero offers mercy if Brain kneels and serves 6 arms. Brain deals with Zero but informs Climb and Lockmeyer that Tuer is succulent using illusion casting. As Brain fights Zero, his blade is deflected by Zero's fists. With Succulent using illusion clones, Lockmeyer uses an item to reveal the real one so Climb can attack. Climb uses his own martial art he learned from his training with Sebas and overpowers Succulent with a powerful kick to his groin. Zero offers a more powered battle with Brain, both use their strongest techniques. As they dialogue, Sebas arrives, shocking Zero, who is in disbelief that his subordinates could have lost against an old geezer. Climb informs Sebas the tour they found was a fake, but the real Tuer is behind Sebas. Enraged, Zero pauses his battle with Brain to fight Sebas, using his strongest monk attack to strike Sebas' center mass. Sebas nonchalantly counters with a drop heel kick, caving Zero's head in, his dying breath and asking who Sebas really is. After Nabe arrives at the manor, Evil Eye gives a report of their encounter with the insect maid and how she nearly killed her. Evil Eye then internally has the first girlish thoughts she had in centuries since being a vampire. Thinking over the recent events, Momon concludes Evil Eye is not simply a child with an adamantite ranking. Momon offers to help carry her fallen friends, but Evil Eye mentions that her team leader Lachius will be here shortly with her 5th tier resurrection magic raised dead, but the magic would cause her comrades to be unfit for combat for a time. As Momon would like to meet Lachius, Evil Eye gets flustered over the idea. He diffuses the problem that he would like to meet a senior adventurer, leaving Evil Eye flushed. As Sebas and the group exit the Eight Fingers base victorious, Climb asks what Sebas' next move is. The butler will take Tuer to a safe location to prevent a repeat of recent events. In the distance, Climb also sees the wall of flames. Everyone in the city of Riestais can see the flames, and Princess Renner calls for an emergency summit of adventurers. Lachius reports the fires to cause no damage, and there are demons on the other side. Renner informs the adventurers of Jaldabaoth and his power using one attack to kill 2 adamantite adventurers, making the battle against him all the more difficult. Evil Eye presents Momonga to the summit as he was able to fight Jaldabaoth on a relatively equal footing. Brain, Climb and Lockmire join a group to rescue civilians. After the summit, Gazef lends Climb his ring with the power to boost his abilities that he was given by Rigrid in the hopes he will return alive. Zanuck and Revan are with Renner looking at her plan, impressed by it. But the two point out that Climb is likely to die. Renner is aware of this as if he does, Lachius can resurrect him, and in his weakened state Renner can keep him close and in her loving care. In affirmation, Renner shows her true face, disturbing both her brother and the Marquis. As Prince Zanuck rallies the citizens, Momonga is dropped in by Nabe and Evili and gets rid of the monsters. Brain, Climb and Lockmire use the Battle of the Adventurers and Demons to investigate the warehouse area for captured civilians. Sheltier is unable to remember Brain due to her resurrection, but Brain takes it as she can't remember him since she views him as insignificant. Brain uses his field martial art, and Sheltier walks into it. But this time Brain aims for and cuts her fingernail with 4-fold slash of light, a weakened version of Gazef Stranoff's 6-fold slash of light. While Sheltier is mildly impressed, calling him a nail clipper, Brain is overjoyed, realizing he has reached a new level of strength from having his friends in his heart. He then runs, but Sheltier notices Climb and Lockmire, remembering the order Demiurge gave her, so she lets them run away. As Momonga, Nabe, and Evili reach Jaldabaoth, they see his 5 masked demon maids. While the female adventurers handle the maids, Momonga battles Jaldabaoth. Evili fights Alpha and Delta, while Nabe fights Beta, Epsilon, and Zeta. Deploying a mini sandstorm, Evil Eye is surprised that the demon maids know how to team up and reinforce each other. Alpha, unfazed by the sand, finds and attacks Evili, cracking her mask. Evil Eye, seeing the 2 maids she fights are resistant to all her stun attacks, gets airborne to rethink her strategy. Elsewhere, Demiurge and Ainz speak in private in an abandoned building to discuss Demiurge's 4-part plan. The plan involved covertly stealing goods and raw materials from Riestais, masking retaliation against 8 Fingers by framing them for summoning Jaldabaoth with a prototype of the Armageddon evil statue, taking captured humans for experimentation, and placing blame on Jaldabaoth to boost Mommon's reputation as an adventurer. Ainz orders Demiurge to grant respectful captives a merciful end. Evili regroups with Nabe, and Jaldabaoth is thrust into the scene. Momonga, now finally getting to fight seriously, battles the demon. While airborne, Momonga uses a fire item and attacks right at the demon, but his right-handed blade is destroyed by hell flames. Seeing a chance to use a new weapon, Momonga deploys his Frost Pain modified and nullifies Jaldabaoth's hell flames. Jaldabaoth calls for a retreat and wishes to end their battle. Evil Eye is against it, but Momonga agrees. The demon takes his leave, and with that, the disturbance comes to an end. Overjoyed, Evili jumps and hugs Momonga for defeating and repelling Jaldabaoth. The next day, Momon and Nabe depart for Erantal, with Marquis Revan thanking them for their service. Elsewhere, Aura decrees that the remaining 8 Fingers operatives are now servants to Ainz Ooal Gown. At night, Blue Rose and Brain are having a meal together in the tavern, while Evili's friends recount how Rigrid humiliated her in combat to make her join. Gagarin then remembers that Evil Eye can teleport, and if she had gone with Momonga in the morning to Erantal, she could have established a fast travel point and visit him whenever she wanted. Evil Eye realizes this and freaks out. Back in Nazarick, Pestania introduces Tuer to the homunculus maids as a recruit. Ainz returns to Nazarick and sits on his throne. Meanwhile, in the Baharuth Empire, Fluter Paradine informs Emperor Jerkniv Rune Farlord El Nix that, on his investigation of Ainz Ooal Gown, he concludes the magic caster is greater than or equal to his level of magical power. While wishing to meet Ainz personally, Fluter is also ordered by the Emperor to investigate adamantite adventurer Momonga. Gathered in court, Ainz tells all the NPCs, people, to raise their heads and praises them for playing their role well in the Riestais kingdom. He commands Sebas and Solution to step forward and decides to reward them for their service in collecting long-term information. Then, Ainz tells Sebas that his wish is to free Tsuer, but he has already freed her because the debt was already owed. Not just that, but he also tells him to ask him for anything, and he could have asked for anything like money or a father figure, but Sebas has nothing to ask. When Ainz forces him, Sebas demands clothes and food for Tsuer. Hearing that, Ainz assures him that he will be provided with enough gold. Then Ainz asks Solution about her wish and she demands innocent humans for herself, which he grants. Well, not that we know what she is up to, but let's just say those poor humans. After that, Ainz asks everyone for their wishes and grants them rewards. Later, while taking a shower, he knows he has tried many ways to keep his body in fine condition and finds a slime shower the best option. Now, he relaxes because he has nothing to do. On the other hand, maids gobble down their lunch in the corridor and are happy because they have the whole day to rest. Then, one of the maids gets up and goes to Ainz's room to serve him. But well, not that kind of serve, so don't get your hopes up high. His room is full of spiders and he is idle. Later, he asks the maid if she is feeling good and she tells him she has had enough rest and is ready to serve him, rather excited too. Well, Ainz can't really believe his people are so loyal to him that they follow his command. After a while, Demiurge comes to meet Ainz and tells him he has prepared an information circulation for the male guardians, hoping Sebas could join, but he is busy with something else. On the other hand, Albedo summons a cavalry beast and tries to tame it. The boy standing there asks if he isn't going to name it because that is his only pet. So, Albedo tells him that he doesn't think of the beast as his pet and he just wants to ride it. Bet Belle from Beauty and the beast wouldn't reject riding the beast too. Anyways, when he climbs onto the beast, it can't stand his weight and falls onto its knees, just like drop down in front of their professors.
What did he say?
Intoma comes and summons the encyclopedia she got gifted by Lord Ainz. Further, Aura tells Albedo that he also got something from the Lord as a gift. Hearing that, Albedo gets sad and wishes she could also get something just for herself from Lord Ainz. Intoma finds that the reason the horse fell onto its knees is because Albedo is a maiden. Albedo tells them she is waiting for the Lord to summon her to his bed. Aura and Intoma motivate Albedo and tell her not to lose hope. Meanwhile, Mare is at the castle and she gets a file from the Lord that she has to deliver to Ainz. Albedo is also in the room and Ainz appreciates Mare for her help. Suddenly, he lifts her out of kindness, but the maids think he is going to eliminate her. Albedo starts laughing and jumps over Ainz, her face red, and starts moaning, telling him she will finish in a minute. Well, she surely wanted to get impaled by Ainz. Later, all the male guardians, including Ainz, are in the slime bath. He hears a sound from the outer wall of the bath and gets nervous. Demiurge tells him it is Albedo and she is angry. Of course, Ainz gets nervous because he thinks the wall might fall down any time. Demiurge and the others keep enjoying the slime bath, unable to believe they are relaxing. Ainz decides that Demiurge and Albedo will become the doctrine that Nazarick will follow. Not just that, he also orders them to tell everyone that Nazarick will move forward. Ainz asks everyone for their opinion, but no one comes forward. Then, he tells Demiurge to explain the plan to others. Very excitedly, Demiurge starts explaining. Well, Momonga was lost in his own thoughts, having no idea when something like world domination was decided. Even though he looks so buff and all, he panics on the inside. Of course, anyone could have social anxiety, so he decides not to ask about the plan because it might cause another suspension. To think about it, Ainz decides to dominate the world, because it low-key sounds cool and dominating is always fun. Being loyal, Demiurge tells him that he won't forget any of his words, making him sound like the Notes app. Demiurge knows that world domination is not something easy, so he suggests that they should make Nazarick public because it could help them. Demiurge knows that Lord Ainz has already made his move for world domination but wants him to tell everyone about it. Meanwhile, Ainz has no idea about what he planned, he is just playing around the bushes so that no one suspects him. Well, Ainz is just as surprised as we are to know the stuff none of us knew about him. Then, Demiurge tells everyone that Ainz did not destroy the Karn village, instead he ruled over them. Everyone was impressed because, at first, it looked like Ainz was soft and started showing mercy. Well, Ainz himself is really surprised because that's totally not his personality and Demiurge sure got it all wrong. On the other hand, humans are living peacefully in the Karn village. They are trying to rebuild it and make it safe for other people. Henry walks around with a goblin who is working with her. Henry meets some other villagers who are trying to rebuild the village. One of them thinks that it is weird for people to move to such a dangerous place, but his wife interrupts him and stops him. One thing they all know is that they are safe because of their lord. Later on, Emery goes to meet her friend, Enfira, and she sees smoke coming out of his house. Of course, she gets worried, but her friend comes out, excited. That's when you know that dealer gave good stuff. Anyways, he tells her that he created a new potion and it worked. Jujum, the goblin, separates them and tells the girl to bring hot water because he could clearly see Enfira got high off the fumes. So, he tells Henry to leave and turns to Enfira that if he is head over heels for Henry, he should stop with his childish crap and work properly. Later that day, all the villagers and goblins are having a feast at the same place and Henry serves them. They joke around about who Henry will marry, well definitely not some green dude. Suddenly, Enfira passes out and Henry holds him above her shoulder and places him on the bed. Usually it should be the other way around but Enfira looks sub too. Later, Emry works in the kitchen, and that's when a little girl named Nemu comes to her. She remembers that when Nemu's parents got eliminated in front of her eyes. Since then, she's been sort of off. Outside the kitchen, a small lad is making something with herbs. So, Emry explains to Jujum that it is the specialty of Karn village. Suddenly, a scout comes out of the village and reports to Jujum that something is happening in the forest. Hearing that, Emry remembers that they also have to collect the herb, so Jujum decides to escort her along with other soldiers so it's less dangerous. Ainz sees that now it's his time to shine as a protector and showing up his non-existent manly side, and well, that makes Emry get the Ike. Wandering around and picking up the herbs, Emry feels attracted to Ainz. Suddenly, they all hear a lad run and hide and see that he's getting hunted by a dark wolf. Seeing the situation, Jujum tells Emry that they should avoid any kind of danger or it might follow them to the village. But Emry takes pity on the lad and decides to save it. Of course, they all had to agree with her, so Jujum decides to save the lad, but the wolf is really powerful. Ainz decides to help them too. He traps the wolf with his magic and tells them to strike it at once, and they successfully defeat the wolf. After saving the lad, they find out that he is the fourth son of the goblin tribe. But the lad is traumatized and covered in blood. Ainz uses his new potion on the boy and heals him instantly. After a while, the little boy tells them that the dark magical beast is coming toward the village. Emry escorts the boy to their village. The boy is shocked when he sees the wooden wall of the village and tells them that it looks like the Monument of the Ruin, a scary place that appeared recently in the forest. Anyways, Emry tells them that they should get inside the village first and talk about it in detail, but Lupis comes behind them suddenly and scares them. Inside the village, Lupis is curious about the goblin boy who is nervous around her. Brita, the ex-adventurer in the village, is called to the meeting by Jujum. Lupis is surprised that goblins and humans live together in this village. It's too modern for her. The goblin boy, named Agu, tells them that there are 3 dark creatures in the forest who fought the king of the ruin to take control of the forest and rule over them. Further, he also says that the Dark Shadow King wants to make them slaves, which is why they ran away. The boy warns that the Dark Shadow King might come to the village too. Lupis says she can ask Lord Ainz for help, and Emry decides to prepare the village for the possible danger. So, they all go out, and Jujum tells the boy to stay careful of Lupis because she is a strong girl. But before Lupis leaves, Ainz gives Lupis a bottle of potion and requests her to deliver it to Ainz on his behalf. While Emry is sleeping with her sister at night, like most Japanese producers behind the screens,
What?
Jujum wakes her up and tells her that they found a few people from another tribe. Hearing that, Emry is relieved, and Jujum informs her that they also found some ogres who initially attacked them but then decided to join them. So, Emry raises her voice and makes the ogres follow her. The next day, Emry goes to the capital to sell some herbs but gets caught by the guard because they can sense magic from her. A wizard sees a valuable magical item on Emry's hand and gets terrified. So, Emry tells him that Lord Gown gave it to her. The wizard tells her that she could summon an army of goblins with that horn. A knight comes and helps Emry, making the guard free her. Then, she goes to trade her herbs at the Adventurers Guild, where she gets a very low price for her herbs. She considers selling the horn but stops herself and suddenly falls asleep. After a while, the lady at the Adventurers Guild wakes her up and offers her a big price for her herbs. Emry and the goblins are camping on the roadside. She gives them all good weapons and thanks them for protecting the village. Once she gets back to the village, she becomes worried because a few villagers don't want the other tribe members to live with them and share food. Emry meets Lupis and consults with her. So, Lupis tells her that she doesn't have to listen to foolish people and should listen to herself. Emry later talks to Ainz, which helps her a lot. She decides what she has to do and thanks Ainz for his help. Lupis is floating over the Karn village when her sister Yuri comes and tells her that Lord Ainz has called for her. Yuri also notices that Lupis looks happy, which is because Lupis is pleased that a new leader has been born and history is going to change. They return to the capital, and Lupis wishes Ainz the best in making the village better. Ainz calls Lupis and inquires whether she has heard about the movements of the giants of the east and the demon snake of the west. Lupis acknowledges that she's aware but didn't find the information useful enough to convey. Disappointed, Ainz gives her a look and asks her what she thinks the village of Nazarick means to him. Lupis responds that it's a village he uses for experimentation, and that has many toys for his amusement. Ainz internally notes her response, thinking she might be losing it, and advises her to chill out next time. He then proceeds to explain the significance of the village, particularly emphasizing the value of Ainz and his grandmother, as they are currently making a new potion for him. Lupis then hands Ainz a purple potion made by Ainz, which pleases him, leading him to once again commend the Balar family's genetics. Ainz further elaborates on how potions in this world deteriorate over time, contrasting them with the non-spoiling red potions from Yggdrasil. Ainz is developing a potion similar to those from Yggdrasil but without needing any resources from there. Despite considering Ainz important enough to confine to Nazarick, Ainz prefers gaining someone's trust over coercion to achieve their goals. Curious about Ainz's decision to give Britta a red potion, Lupis questions him, leaving Ainz momentarily perplexed. He humorously justifies his actions, stating it was for the greater good, which surprises Albedo. He explains Ainz's true intention, revealing that he anticipated Britta seeking help from an experienced chemist, thus leading him to Ainz. They all praise the wise king, while Ainz is laughing inside thinking how gullible they are. Continuing, Ainz asserts that Ainz is the most important person in the village, followed by Henry as Ainz is down bad for her, and finally Ainz's grandmother Lizzie. He entrusts Lupis with their protection, to which she readily agrees. She starts fangirling over Ainz as she marches outside. Next, Ainz turns to Aura to inquire about the giants of the east and the demon snake of the west. Aura admits her lack of information despite conducting a thorough search of the forest. Ainz regards the perceived threats as falling on the same level as Hamusuk. Though Aura offers to dispatch some of her pets to handle the situation, Ainz is up for an adventure as the man has not touched grass in ages. Thus, they embark on a journey to investigate the giants of the east and the demon snake of the west firsthand, while simultaneously devising a test for Lupis. As they move toward the giant of the east's home, Ainz plans to chat with them, thinking of catching them if they're not from Yggdrasil. Aura gets swayed by Ainz's fun attitude and praises his kindness. Ainz clarifies he's only kind to those he thinks are worth it or connected to Nazarick. He compares worthiness to Hamusuk, seeing him as a good test subject. When Aura asks about Hamusuk's training, Ainz confirms he's training the Lizardman with a Death Knight to make him a warrior. Despite doubts, he wants to compare Hamusuk's progress with someone else. As he gets lost in his thoughts, he then gets rizzed by Aura's back. The man deserves to be in the Randy jail. As they set out towards the lairs of the mentioned monsters, Ainz plans to engage them in conversation, considering capturing them if they didn't exist in Yggdrasil. Aura is swayed by Ainz's whimsical demeanor, praising his kindness, to which Ainz responds that his kindness is reserved for those worthy or affiliated with Nazarick. He compares the monsters to Hamusuk, deeming them worthy as useful test subjects. Ainz elaborates on Hamusuk's training with a Death Knight, expressing his doubts but desiring to compare it with another entity. Arriving at their destination, Aura points out the cave where the demons supposedly reside. Ainz, sensing a trap, cautiously enters with Aura. Inside, they encounter a giant ogre feasting on skeletons. Ainz engages them in conversation, identifying himself as Ainz Ooal Gown. The monsters, led by Gu, exhibit skepticism towards Ainz, but Ainz challenges Gu to a duel. Despite Gu's attempts to attack Ainz, he remembers Ainz unscathed due to his powerful defenses. Ainz retaliates, eventually incapacitating Gu and making him and his subordinates disappear by using Despair LVL5. Naga surrenders, promising to bring his subordinates. Returning to Nazarick, Ainz consults Demiurge about food, then receives confirmation from Intoma that Lupis has passed her test. He grants permission for the next test, involving the protection of 3 individuals during an upcoming battle. Meanwhile, in Karn village, Henry is awakened by the warning bells of the village. An emergency is declared in the city. Henry and Enmu get out of bed to find the villagers running in a panic. A neighbor arrives to take Enmu with her. Henry tells Enmu to head to the gathering point because she needs to help save the village. Enmu escapes with the neighbor while Henry takes on the responsibility of being the village chief. Jujum and his soldiers set up defenses as Henry and Ainz join them. After helping his grandmother reach the gathering point, Ainz hands over some potions to use as weapons. Brita speculates whether the enemy is the giant of the east and the snake of the west, but Jujum cannot identify them. They decide to follow intruder plan number 2. As the enemy gets closer, Henry and Ainz leave to ensure the villagers' safety while Jujum prepares for battle. He warns Henry to be careful. A giant troll approaches the city. Jujum's soldiers and the Vigilante Corps shoot arrows at the enemy, thinking they have hit their target. However, their efforts fail when a giant throws a huge rock at them, though the soldiers keep shooting arrows. When the giant reaches one of the village gates, Jujum reveals he had weakened it on purpose to set traps. The soldiers use Ainz potion. However, Jujum remains worried about the presence of a magic caster. As the giant troll attacks, the soldiers consider retreating. Jujum tells them to stop acting like a princess and die before retreating and gives them an emo speech about heroism. Back in the village, Henry checks the houses for villagers. Suddenly, a giant troll breaks through a village wall. Bro thinks he is in AOT, but the troll can defeat the beast titan in ugliness. Meanwhile, Henry and Enfira hide in a building as Enfira explains that trolls have a strong sense of smell. Enfira suggests meeting up with Jujum and others, but Henry disagrees. Instead, Henry proposes dealing with the troll themselves. They create an ogre smell to distract the troll. The troll follows the scent, realizes the trick, and then chases after the fleeing humans. While the soldiers keep battling the giants, they notice something odd about the huge giant. It doesn't heal itself like the others. Meanwhile, Henry recalls the plan to use clothes with an ogre smell. They take turns being decoys. When it's Henry's turn, she leads the troll out of the building. The troll figures out the trick and attacks Enfira. Enfira tells Henry to run and fights the troll with acid arrows, asking her to get help. Henry leaves, and Enfira tries to use hypnosis on the troll, but it doesn't work. Henry returns with help, and Lupis stops the troll before it can harm Enfira further. She heals Enfira with her magic. Then, Lupis sets the troll on fire, and the soldiers win their battle too. With peace restored, Lupis informs Enfira that Ainz wants to thank him for making the purple potion. Later, Henry and Enfira sit peacefully under a tree. Henry is relieved that the danger has ended and admits she isn't sure if she loves him but never wants him to leave. Sounds like a situationship. Later, Jujum shows Enfira a sword from a giant, explaining how one of the giants couldn't use its healing ability and moved strangely. Henry and Nemu dress up, with Henry looking cute enough to give Enfira a nosebleed. Lupis and Alpha escort them. Nemu is mesmerized by Ainz's home, and Ainz offers to give her a tour, while Enfira and Henry enjoy tea served by a maid. After Nemu returns from the tour, Ainz discusses potions with Enfira. The maid announces dinner, causing Ainz to leave them to enjoy the dinner, thinking he should add Nemu to his protection list. Enfira feels insecure about the luxurious lifestyle, but Henry reassures him that she prefers him. In the remote tower of the Ministry of Magic, where a cult-like group is gathered to see Death Knight, Fluter demands the Death Knight submit to him. Outside, Fluter is conducting an experiment supervised by his students to see if placing skeletons near corpses will turn them into zombies. Inflation so high that even skeletons are working. A knight informs Fluter that some adamantite-class adventurers wish to see him. Fluter inquires about them. The soldier says they identify themselves as Darkness, which surprises Fluter. In Arwinter, Mammon and Nabe marvel at the city's brilliance. Mammon reflects on Emperor Jerknev's brutal reputation but also recognizes his positive reforms. Fluter praises the Emperor's removal of corruption and promotion of talent. Mammon encounters skilled knights who recognize him as an adamantite-class adventurer. Despite Nabe's skepticism, Mammon admires the soldier's discipline. He plans to bolster his reputation at the Adventurers Guild. Nabe mentions rumors of inferior workers in the country, but Mammon explains to Ainz they operate independently. Now Ainz remembers Demiurge's plan to make Nazarick a stable country. After Ainz gives his approval, Demiurge starts the plan right away. In the kingdom, soldiers report to Jerknev about a recent disturbance. They reveal that Mammon was the one who defeated the demon Jaldabaoth, but the demon managed to escape. Despite upgraded security, there has been no sign of the demon. Considering the country's exhaustion, the Emperor decides against a war as the Empire is not America. Instead, they focus on gathering intelligence from traitorous nobles. The Emperor orders Fluter to investigate Jaldabaoth further. The Emperor suspects that more heroes may emerge. He consults the 4 knights, who offer blunt opinions. The Emperor instructs Fluter to continue researching Mammon and Ainz, and Fluter says he has information about them. Zanuck is talking about rebuilding the city after Jaldabaoth's attack. Renner asks about the people captured by the demons, and he wonders how the demons could take so many people. Demons might be aiming for the most eliminations in anime history. Zanuck reassures his father that people praise him for fighting the demons. They mention the Magicians Guild searching for a magic item Jaldabaoth wanted. Barbo interrupts them to ask why soldiers haven't moved to Erantal. Zanuck says it's because the Empire isn't attacking. Marquis thinks it's a trick and the Empire will attack when they're not ready. Barbo boasts he can defeat the Empire and demons unlike Zanuck, who is only capable of eating them. Later, during sword training, Gazef notices Brain's improved attacks. Who says he's not a femboy, he is capable enough of fighting. Climb praises Brain's skills, leading Gazef to believe in Brain's potential. Climb then departs for his duties, and Gazef inquires about Brain's plans, learning it's his day off. Proud of Brain's progress, Gazef reflects on Brain's future, though he wishes Brain would take his place. In a pub, Hecarim recounts encountering a remarkable traveler and a more stunning woman than Emina. Later, in a strategy meeting, they discuss a job offer from Count Femel of the Re-Esti's kingdom to explore an ancient tomb. Archie reveals the terms upfront payment, completion bonus, and danger involved due to rival teams. Despite doubts, they agree, with Archie intending to change her family's fate but decides to prioritize her sister's future. As the Foresight team discusses Archie's departure with her sister, Emina reassures them that Archie's magical skills will support her. However, they feel uncertain about their future without her. Hecarim suggests returning to adventuring, but Robertic prefers retirement over temple duties. Amidst their conversation, Imina's playful behavior lightens the mood. At home, Archie confronts her father about his wasteful spending, expressing frustration over their declining status. She threatens to leave with her sisters once she can afford to. During the night, Hecarim reflected deeply on their final mission together. The next day, the assembled teams exchange greetings. Despite initial comparisons to Gazef, Uryaz's behavior raises doubts about his status. A man thanks them for the job and introduces Mammon and Nape. Mammon questions their motivation for accepting the dangerous mission, noting that unlike adventurers, they possess the freedom to decline, to which they admit it's for the money. Mammon reflects on the value of risking everything for monetary gain and apologizes for his question. As they progress on their mission, everyone wonders about the tomb and potential dangers. Imina wonders about the narcissist buried inside. Hecarim is excited about the unknown, while Archie hopes the tomb is filled with treasure. At night, Hecarim briefs everyone on the plan. All teams will enter the mausoleum from 4 sides and meet in the center. Gringham's men use an invisibility spell and see a crest but don't know any spells for crests. As they ponder, Gringham goofs with his men. Man is born to be a Hello Kitty girl but forced to be a Batman. Upon examining the crest, they find it adorned with precious metal. One man suggests taking the metal, but Gringham says it's too heavy, so they proceed with their main task and open a sarcophagus, finding it filled with gold. Gringham rushes to Hecarim, who is waiting with other teams. Gringham asks if Hecarim's team also found treasures, to which Hecarim confirms that all teams discovered valuables. They then plan to explore the lower floors. A smell is coming from the lower rooms, one similar to a weeb's room. Parpatra proposes to find a shortcut to the center in exchange for 10% of the findings. As they descend, Archie asks Robertic if there is any undead presence, but he shakes his head. They determine the ruin to be at least 600 years old. Suddenly, skeletons attack. They were expecting a real danger, but it's just some malnourished e-boys. Gringham destroys the skeletons and warns the leaders to prepare for real danger. Mammon watches from a distance with an adventurer, who hopes their comrades return safely. Mammon sadistically comments they will all die but covers it up by saying he wants them prepared for dangers. Returning to the tent, Mammon informs Nabe he is going back to Nazarick and will send Pandora's actor in his place. Mammon takes Ainz's form and vanishes to Nazarick, where Albedo greets him. Ainz asks Albedo about preparations. Albedo assures him she has plans in store. As Hecarim's team moves forward, they sense a presence and hide. Archie assesses the skeletons as first-tier magic casters, which could be troublesome. Robertic uses his holy faith to turn the skeletons to dust. Meanwhile, Parpatra's men think he was foolish to leave the treasure, but Parpatra reveals he was wise not to enter an unknown place. Alpha commends his decision. Parpatra turns and feels strange to see the women. Man wonders whether he teleported to a harem world. The Pleiades get excited about killing the old hag and his men. Yuri summons old darters to kill them. Parpatra's men fight back, but Yuri and the Pleiades watch them die one by one. Yuri orders the survivors healed and sent to the torture chamber, reporting the deaths to Ainz. In the tomb, Gringham runs from fire-throwing skeletons, eventually finding himself teleported to Kyoyuku, who refuses a trade for Gringham's life, preferring to eat him instead. In Nazarick, a man is tortured by Neuronist Painkel, who expresses her thirsty desire for Ainz. Neuronist competes with Albedo and Sheltier for Ainz's affection and introduces herself to the man, explaining her creator's suffering to kidney stones and her plan to torture him similarly. Back in the tomb, Ira's elf hears a sound and finds a giant rabbit. Hamsuk. The elf cannot identify the creature. Hamsuk aims to eliminate Ira, but Ira offers to fight solo. Hamsuk lands a blow, making Ira's nose bleed. Ira attacks, but Hamsuk damages him with her tail. Ira enhances his powers, but Hamsuk cuts his arms with a slashing strike. As Ira dies, his elves seem amused. Hamsuk finishes Ira with a final strike. Zaryusu praises Hamsuk's slashing strike, while Hamsuk finds Ira's elves' reaction to his death odd. Team Foresight realizes they are in a magic trap as their surroundings change. Archie recognizes the place as the Colosseum of the Empire. Now, they understand why they are there. As the battle begins, Aura makes an announcement, introducing the Foresight as foolish humans and to battle with them. The great ruler Ainz, in his casual robe, looking like a rich rapper, Albedo is acting as a cornerman for Ainz. Archie apologizes to her friends, but they reassure her it was a team decision. Hecarim tries to talk their way out of trouble, but Ainz is stubborn, comparing their intrusion to maggots and food that can't be ignored. Despite Hecarin's attempts to explain, Ainz doesn't believe them, even when Hecarin mentions permission from someone. But soon Ainz becomes intrigued and asks about the person who gave permission. While Hecarin explains, Hecarin keeps looking around for an escape route. Hecarin reveals the person asked to convey regards to Ainz, realizing he's trying to save himself. Ainz becomes furious and is surrounded by a dark aura but then calms himself down, understanding Hecarin's ploy. He orders his guardians to cover their ears. Ainz thought he didn't like Demiurge's idea to bring thieves to Nazarick, but he believed it was the right thing to do. Now, he plans to dispose of the Foresight. Taking off his robe, Ainz prepares to fight. The Foresight attacks together, but they're no match for him. Ainz suggests a different game, and a red light emanates from him. Hecarin thinks he's a magic caster, but Archie can't detect any magic, realizing her powers as magic detection. Ainz makes her sick, and they realize they have no chance against him. During the fight, Ainz targets Emina, but Hecarin intervenes, only to be defeated by Ainz. Warning Hecarin, Emina scolds Hecarin, threatening Ainz to turn Hecarin back or face Mammon of Darkness. Ainz says that they should not count on him, and Robertic offers to distract Ainz, while Archie escapes. Robertic tells Arch to leave briefly so she won't distract them. He gives her money for her and her sisters. Emina supports Robertic, urging Arch to think about her sisters. Robertic assures Arch that they will defeat Ainz and follow her. Trusting them, Arch flies off to find her sisters. Seeing this emotional moment, Ainz considers them more pitiful than he thought. Robertic and Emina argue that Archie is their comrade, questioning Ainz if his comrades were any different. Emina asks Ainz to let Arch go. Ainz agrees but orders Sheltier to get rid of Arch, but without pain, of course. Robertic and Emina attack to buy her more time. And yes, this is considered to be a nice act if Ainz had to say so himself. As Archie tries to escape, Sheltier reveals to her that she is still on the 6th floor of the Great Tomb, and escaping from here is impossible. And she shall die a painless death. As Archie attempts to struggle, Sheltier devours her. Meanwhile, Ainz defeats the Foresight and orders Aura to take Emina and Hecarin away. Back at Archie's home, her sisters wait eagerly for her return. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Jerkniv learns of the workers' demise and plans countermeasures. Fluter admires Jerkniv and prepares a scapegoat. Suddenly, Dark Elves arrive, blaming Jerkniv for sending intruders into Ainz's territory. They threaten to destroy the Baharuth Empire, shocking everyone with few deaths. After the attack, Aura announces that she has eliminated all humans outside and now desires to eliminate those inside. However, she doesn't know the Emperor's identity. Aura demands that the Emperor apologize to Ainz or face consequences, to which the Emperor reveals himself and instructs Fluter to accompany him to Nazarick to maintain peace. On the journey, Jerkniv, feeling more energetic after a nap, blames his tiredness on making changes too quickly. Vermilion agrees like a good puppy, saying that by removing many nobles, there aren't enough officials left. Jerkniv worries that if he continues at this pace, the next emperor won't like him. Fluter is confused because the loser emperor doesn't even have a girlfriend. Fluter asks if Jerkniv plans to marry, but Jerkniv dismisses his suggestions. Someone just got blushy. Then, Lanus tells the emperor they're nearing Nazarick and a maid is ready to greet them. Fluter warns that the world they're about to enter is very different, and if anything goes wrong, Jerkniv should ask Fluter to teleport them away immediately. Upon arrival, Yuri and Lupis welcome the guests. Yuri changes the unpleasant weather to a sunny day using a high-tier magic spell, astonishing Fluter. As the Death Knights march in holding tables, Jerkniv wonders if Death Knights have the same significance in this world. The maid reassures them that these Death Knights, created by Ainz, will not harm humans. The maids serve orange juice, which everyone enjoys, before leading the guests to meet Ainz. Jerkniv sees Ainz's immense power, wealth, status, military might, magical skills, and beautiful women, realizing he cannot intimidate Ainz. Upon meeting Ainz, Jerkniv concludes that surviving this encounter unscathed and avoiding harm to the Empire would be a victory. Ainz formally welcomes Jerkniv, and when the Emperor thanks him, Demiurge says a mere human should not address Ainz as an equal. Ainz stops Demiurge, apologizes for his actions, and the Emperor offers the head of the person who sent intruders to Nazarick. Ainz accepts and transforms the head into a Death Knight. Addressing Jerkniv, Ainz states there is no need for an apology but emphasizes that he will eliminate any threats to Nazarick to restore peace. Jerkniv proposes an alliance, suggesting Ainz establish a country on his current land with the Empire's full support. and assistance in creating friendly ties with other states. Ainz quickly agrees, surprising Jerknev. He promises to get in touch with Jerknev soon regarding these issues and assigns his secretary, Laun, to stay with Ainz for communication purposes. Ainz sends Demiurge along with Jerknev, noting the cunning move of sending someone skilled in human manipulation. As Jerknev leaves, Sheltier asks why Ainz agreed to collaborate. Ainz replies that he prefers ruling through power and sees alliances as more advantageous than making enemies. Demiurge hints at Ainz's larger plan, mentioning the adventurer Mammon as part of a strategy to prevent the country's downfall. Ainz has no clue what deep mess Demiurge is talking about but asks Demiurge to explain so he doesn't lob. In the carriages, Jerknev thinks about his visit to Ainz's castle. He sees Ainz as a powerful figure like Death on a throne but refuses to give up. Knowing Ainz can easily summon Death Knights, Jerknev realizes the Empire could collapse in a day if Ainz becomes their enemy. Jerknev figures out that Fluter usually stays behind to study Ainz's superior magic. Remembering that Fluter suggested sending the workers, Jerknev suspects Fluter betrayed them to gain favor with Ainz. He decides to create an alliance with other nations against Ainz, but he knows they must proceed carefully. In Nazarick, Demiurge discusses the Emperor's plans, predicting that Jerknev will seek alliances and potential internal betrayal. Although the idea of betrayal is offensive, Albedo reassures them that everything is going according to Ainz's plan. They decide on establishing Nazarick as a nation with the title Sorcerer King for Ainz. In Arwinter, Fluter reflects on his awe upon meeting Ainz, who demonstrated immense magical power. Having begged to become Ainz's student and offered everything in return, Jernev now plans for the step forward. In the capital of the Riesti's kingdom, a messenger arrives with news that the Empire has recognized Nazarick as a country led by the powerful sorcerer Ainz. Consequently, he requests King Ramposa to return the Erantal property to Ainz. Ainz is dreaming of a new America. The royal court, however, is skeptical of Ainz's claim, viewing it as an excuse for invasions. Gazef believes that Ainz is the same person who saved him. Furthermore, a royal suggests Ainz saved Gazef thinking of him as an ally. Margave shuts him up before they get yeeted from the kingdom. Varki insists they cannot accept the Emperor's declaration and suggests war. King Ramposa then asks Gazef for his opinion. Gazef warns that war will be difficult due to Ainz's powerful magic and advises surrendering Erantal. Although some royals mock this idea, one supports it to avoid war and save lives. As the debate intensifies, a royal accuses Gazef of acting sus. Nonetheless, King Ramposa defends Gazef, emphasizing the threat Ainz poses. Despite this, the king refuses to give up the land without a fight. Revan argues that they must prepare to defend Erantal and offers his troops for the front line. Gazef reflects on the royal faction's growth since Jaldabaoth's attack, recognizing the need for King Ramposa to maintain his strength. Subsequently, they decide to prepare for war and delay their response to the Empire. The king orders troops to gather around Erantal and decides to lead them himself. Although Prince Barbro volunteers to join the king, Xanax suggests Barbro should stay behind as the royal heir. Nonetheless, Bulop insists Barbro should fight and sends 4,000 troops with him. In his study, Revan is frustrated how everyone is acting like dumb Sigmas, squabbling over power while facing imminent danger. Blumrish is even secretly leaking information to the Empire. Revan hopes Xanax will inherit the throne soon. After hearing a knock, Revan's son enters, and Revan softens and acts like Kawaii Uni-chan, expressing his desire to provide everything for his son. 2 months later, with preparations complete, the council discusses their war strategy. Revan's intelligence indicates the Empire's army is 1.5 times larger than last year and includes 6 legions. Additionally, Ainz might also be on the battlefield. Although Bulop dismisses the threat of a single magic caster, he agrees they should plan for Ainz's power. Bulop requests permission to send Barbro to gather intelligence from Karn village, which Ainz saved. As Bulop discusses leadership for various units, the king suggests Revan should lead. Consequently, they prepare to move to the battlefield. Once the nobles leave, Ramposa confides in Gazef his fears for his young lad's safety in war. Gazef notes that Bulop likely shares the same concern. Ramposa regrets not addressing the noble factional split sooner and wishes to leave a strong kingdom for his heirs. When Revan enters, the king apologizes for the burden, but Revan believes it is the right choice. Gazef apologizes to Revan for previous disrespect, misunderstanding his intentions. They share a heartfelt moment before Revan returns to planning. On the battlefield, Gazef worries about the impending casualties and Ainz's intentions, considering him an adversary to avoid. Near a tent, Gazef meets Brain and Climb. Brain explains to Ainz that adventurers won't join the battle, though ex-adventurer Lockmeyer works for Revan. Gazef advises Climb to be more aware of his surroundings, and emphasizes on importance for protecting Princess Renner. Brain advises Climb to train in this awareness. Additionally, Brain reveals his intent to meet Mammon of Darkness, who defeated the powerful vampire Sheltier. Gaze suggests changing Climb's armor color for less visibility, but Climb refuses, wanting to riz the princess. Brain vows to protect Climb, confident he can defeat the Imperial Knights but not Ainz. Gaze assures them of a celebration in the royal capital's pub after the battle, pledging they shall all survive. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Empire soldiers bow to Ainz, with Nimble set to guide him through the battle. General Carvane plans to have Ainz assist his unit. When Ainz requests to bring his men, Nimble agrees, provided they attack soon. Ainz then contacts Sheltier to send soldiers. He pulls an Avenger in-game on them to open a gate to transport his large army. On the other hand, Barbro, feeling tricked into a minor errand by Revan, plans to head to Katsipl Ainz after Karn village. Despite his soldiers warning that most of their troops are on foot, urging caution, Barbro insists on proceeding with speed. As they go to the village, Barbro wonders why he was sent there. Barbro comes up with a sadistic plan. He'll use the Karn villagers to negotiate. If Ainz steps out of the war, the Empire will retreat. He plans to use the villagers as soldiers, and if Ainz slices them like Fruit Ninja, everyone will see what kind of monkey Ainz is. In the village, Ooal expresses his gratitude to Henry. Henry is busy checking the village stock for the winter. As Henry walks through the village, everyone greets her respectfully as chief. Overwhelmed by her responsibilities, Henry goes into the barn and collapses. Enfira encourages her, reminding her of the work still ahead. Henry recalls how Ooal believes she can defeat any monster because her troops pretended to lose to her in arm wrestling, leading the villagers to view her as a big shot. Enfira jokes around, and Henry comments that his perfume could sell well in the village. As she moves closer to him, Enfira becomes flustered, and Henry accidentally falls on him, making him notice her talents.
What did he say?
Just then, Jujum informs them of an emergency. Ainz learns from Lupis that Barbro has arrived with 5,000 soldiers to question the villagers about Ainz. Lupis suspects the prince plans to take the villagers hostage to make Ainz surrender. Henry is stalling the prince's army to give the ogres and goblins time to hide. Ainz, concerned about his potion experiment being exposed, orders Lupis to keep him updated and protect 4 key villagers. Barbro's minion, Baton, demands entry. Losing patience, Barbro orders the village to be fried like a chicken, but his soldiers convince him to burn only the watchtower. As the watchtower burns, villagers feel threatened. Henry asks the villagers what they should do next, and everyone agrees to fight back. Henry turns to Jujum for a strategy. Jujum proposes putting the older people at the front lines. The elder chief suggests letting the women and children escape, but the village is surrounded. Jujum plans to open the front gate to lure the soldiers in and then attack, giving villagers a chance to escape to the Great Forest with Britta and Ooal. He assigns Enfira and Henry to lead the escapees. Jujum reminds Henry that she still has one summoning horn left. Outside the village, Barbro wonders about identifying villagers linked to Ainz and regrets not bringing a torturer. When the gates to the village open, suddenly some ogre attacks them, crushing them like a whack-a-mole, causing certain casualties. The ogres retreat and shut the gate, furious, seeing his flag on the ground. Barbro orders his soldiers to burn down the village. As Jujum diverts the soldiers, Britta, Ooal, Henry, and Enfira lead the children to escape through the forest, but a soldier spots them. Enfira fights to buy time, but Henry uses her goblin horn, surprising everyone. Meanwhile, Jujum and the ogres struggle against Ainz the kingdom's soldiers. Surrounded, Jujum hears a sudden horn. Barbro wonders if reinforcements have arrived. Seeing goblins march towards them, Jujum orders his soldiers to head in their direction. An old goblin who looks like he is shipped straight from China introduces himself as a strategist of the army. Ainz watches, surprised by the large goblin army. Mare asks if the item Henry used was magical. Ainz reveals he gave it to her as a gift, thinking it was a useless item. Barbro's soldier suggests retreat, but Barbro refuses. He fears the goblin army might attack Reincarnated, so retreat is not an option. They attack, but the goblins cause many casualties. Outside the village, Henry reunites with the goblin strategist and Jujum. The strategist explains to Ainz that the 5,000 goblins were summoned at Henry's command. Ainz thinks the first horn summoned goblins like in Yggdrasil. Ainz believes the item has a hidden effect that activates under certain conditions. As Barbro escapes, faster than your dad did, the goblins debate if it was right to let him go. One says it was planned by the strategist to allow room for negotiation. At night, Barbro throws a tantrum over being defeated by goblins. Lupis walks in. Barbro asks who she is. Lupis reveals she is a maid serving Ainz and is there to eliminate them. Barbro boasts about himself, but Lupis reminds him he is just a human and not needed in Ainz's plans. She then summons redcaps to slice the soldiers. Afterward, she whispers to a terrified Barbro that her powers are different from Solly's, but she'll prove her worth. Back in the Empire, Jerkniv hears from Riestais that they are starting a war. Baziwood is puzzled, wondering why the Emperor sought help from the undead, especially since the kingdom is no threat, and why he asked Ainz to use his most powerful magic as a signal. Jerkniv explains he needs to show the world how dangerous Ainz is to form alliances against him. Even Ainz Elf-Servant eliminated a few Imperial Knights in the blink of an eye, so her master should be able to wipe out thousands with a powerful spell. This shocks Baziwood, as even the 13 heroes couldn't do such a thing. Jerkniv concludes that if they can't win with strength, they must use cunning. The Riestai's army readies for battle, and Marquis Bulop asks about Prince Barbro, who is supposed to reach Karn village. With no news, Bulop changes formation to face the Empire. A king's noble, confident in their numbers, suggests invading the Empire, which amuses the king. On the front lines, Revan and Gazef discuss the Empire's odd silence, with Gazef hoping for minimal casualties. Revan, admiring Gazef's magic sword and understanding the king's decision to keep Barbro safe, reflects on his own protective instincts as a father and promises to spend time with his lad after the war. Finally, the Empire soldiers start moving. Ainz arrives with his Death Knights, shocking everyone with a dark aura. Gazef warns that this is the same Ainz he had cautioned them about. Ainz begins using a visibly powerful spell. Revan suggests retreat, advising Gazef to protect the king while he returns to his unit. Gazef insists that the retreat be quick and disorderly, as slow and steady gets sliced. Ainz, recalling Yggdrasil tactics, prepares to unleash destruction, eliminating many without remorse as he prioritizes Nazaric's greater good. He uses tribute to dark fertility, horrifying both sides and instantly eliminating 70,000 soldiers. Terrified, Nimble marvels at Ainz's power, but Ainz reveals the spell isn't over yet, as it summons dark, multi-faced monsters similar to my college friends. Proud of summoning 5 monsters, Ainz orders them to eliminate everyone except 4 people. Chaos ensues as everyone runs from the monsters, with Revan urging his men not to look back and run while the other get trampled. Ainz removes his mask and demands applause, with Mare clapping cutely. Soldiers applaud in fear as monsters approach. Ainz believes the Empire's army was supposed to attack with his magic spell but feels bad they might get hurt, so he decides to act. Nimble, horrified, asks how many more Ainz will eliminate. Ainz, annoyed, clarifies he's undead, not a demon, and targets his next move. Honestly, what even is the difference at this point? The soldiers urge the Emperor to flee, but he refuses, asking his troops to retreat instead. Climb runs in, asking if they are the only soldiers. Brain speculates the others have fled. A soldier suggests returning to Erantil to plan a counterattack. Gazef will hold back the monsters. King Ramposa considers retreat and promises rewards once they reach Erantil. Brain jokes about wanting Climb to marry the princess, to which the king agrees, promising Climb a royal title first. Gazef, refusing to abandon his duty, faces a monster, but it doesn't attack him. When Gazef strikes, the monster pushes him down. Gazef encounters Ainz, who asks him to become his subordinate to stop the war. Gazef refuses and challenges Ainz to a duel. Momonga faces Gazef in the middle of the desert, before the Riestai's kingdom. He attempts to convince Gazef that he is no match for him. Gazef acknowledges Momonga's overwhelming power but chooses to embrace an honorable death. Momonga recognizes Gazef's rare valor and feels conflicted about eliminating him. 2 guards stand witness nearby as Gazef shows Momonga his sword. Momonga asks for it after winning, but Gazef refuses, it's his country's national treasure. Momonga agrees and prepares for the duel. 1 guard acts as a bellman. As soon as the bell rings, Gazef charges at Momonga with full force. The Sorcerer King stops time and casts a spell. Time resumes and Gazef collapses. His guards are stunned, unaware of what just occurred. Momonga calmly informs them that Gazef is already dead. Brain and Climb bring Gazef's body back to the castle and brief the prince on the encounter. The Riestai's kingdom's army is swiftly defeated, and Momonga plans to enter the country the following day. The council decides to surrender, knowing they stand no chance. Brain vows to surpass Gazef's strength and criticizes Gazef for choosing an easy end. He shouts defiantly that he won't let Gazef rest peacefully in the afterlife. The next day, Momonga and his forces enter the city with Albedo. The grieving lad confronts them, having lost a father in the war. Enraged, Albedo moves to get rid of the lad, but a mysterious caped man intervenes, stopping her. Momonga approaches and whispers something to Albedo. She calms down and asks the caped man for his name. He introduces himself as Mammon. Albedo offers Mammon a chance to join Nazaric's forces, but he finds it rude. Despite Albedo's threat to eliminate him, Nazaric's forces easily overpower the city's defenses, and every commander submits to Momonga, pledging allegiance to the Sorcerer King. That concludes the anime recap for now. As always, if you enjoyed, let me know down below and I'm out.